Good evening. I'm Kalamazoo City Deputy Manager Jeff Chamberlain, and welcome to tonight's Kalamazoo City Commission meeting of September 8th, 2020. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the city's Facebook page and the city's YouTube channel. You can also listen on your phone by calling area code 269-552-6425 and entering meeting ID number 948-6337-6380 when prompted. And you may also leave a 3-minute public comment for tonight's meeting by calling area code 269-226-6573. And I would like to turn tonight's meeting over to Mayor David Anderson.
Jeff, thank you so much for your great work. Appreciate you as Deputy City Manager. So I'm officially calling this another Zoom meeting of the Kalamazoo City Commission to order. Scott Borling, Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cunningham. Commissioner Hess.
Present.
Commissioner Knott.
Here.
Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Commissioner Urban.
Here.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Is there a motion to excuse Commissioner Cunningham?
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner Urban, supported by Commissioner Hess. Are there any opposed? Oh, I guess we have to vote on this one, right? So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? All right. Absent Commissioner Cunningham is excused. For our opening ceremony tonight, we have Bill Schumacher, from Missional Chaplains is here. So thank you, sir. It's over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, good evening, all of you, Kalamazoo City Commission members. It's an honor to be with you, to be praying with you, and as you continually seek to lead the city of Kalamazoo to become safe and a better place to live and to work. So with that, let's pray. Dear all-wise and heavenly Father, creator of heaven and earth and everything in them, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today, online as it be, for this important meeting. You are sovereign over all things, including the choosing of these city leaders here tonight. Thank you for your many abundant blessings, for life itself, for the measure of health, even in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, for the commission to fulfill their callings, for sustenance, guidance, and wisdom for the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you, Lord, for this group of leaders that collectively desire the best for this city. We are grateful for the combined personalities and abilities that you've chosen to be part of this most critical work. We are honored to be given such a great responsibility and the authority to make Kalamazoo a better place for its people. As the all-knowing, ever-present, and all-powerful God, you created us with free will to embrace you or not to. Thank you for loving us in either case. It is because we are your special creations made in your image that you present your boundless grace and mercy just for the asking. We receive these gifts from your hands. In the Holy Scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, our vice mayor, and the other members and others assembled here tonight, as well as the various city officials that may not be present. We are asking you that you would graciously grant these requests: wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, especially in the unprecedented pandemic and the racial tension that exists here and across our nation. Heal the people of our city, our state, our nation, and our world. And a sense of welfare and true needs of the people of Kalamazoo. Grant a keen awareness and need for justice and righteousness. Grant confidence in what is good and best for the people of the Kalamazoo area. Grant the ability to collaborate tonight and at all times to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement. And for personal peace in our lives and joy in the tasks set before us. And success in following and accomplishing today's agenda that is set before us. And Lord, please give us guidance and assurance and affirmation of your perfect will to be pleasing in your sight in order to benefit those who live and work in and around the city of Kalamazoo. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
So the next item on our agenda is adoption of our formal agenda. We do have an agenda that was the published one, is the one that we all have, but I had a conversation with Vice Mayor Griffin and just kind of recognizing the fact that there's an item on our regular agenda tonight that has, gotten a great deal of attention over many, many months. And the fact that we've already adjusted our agenda to accommodate Zoom meetings and we've been moving our public comment periods around. This is what I'm proposing that we do tonight. So bear with me here for a moment. But what I think in general, what we're going to be doing is separate our public comments a bit. I know that Deputy City Manager Chamberlain has already been taking care of that. So people have an opportunity to either comment during the public hearing, which is E on that item. That's ordinance rezone, or select to comment on in advance of our regular agenda on those regular agenda items, or have a general comment, which we would do after that, right before our, I think that would be before our reports. Where'd that go here? Right before reports and legislation. So I'm proposing that we just modify our agenda to accommodate those things tonight. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay, that said, yes, Attorney Robinson, were you?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so do we need an approval of a modified agenda?
I think Mayor, I think you've asked for that, and in terms of this, what you've suggested, and unless there's an objection, I think that you may proceed.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Robinson. I appreciate that. Next time on our agenda is communications, and City Manager Ritzma, I believe you have some communications for us.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I just wanted to provide an update on the subcommittee report work that was done. I know there was a press conference held last week where we went through in pretty good detail the substance of the report. I just want to highlight some of those items this evening for our audience and for commission. First, I want to clarify, I think, some of the items around the credentialing of media and some of the concerns there that I believe may exist. It's never been, nor will it ever be, our intent to regulate the media. By credentialing, we were thinking about a way of identifying media in these large-scale events when things are hectic, and some way of doing that to protect them and the important role that they serve during these events of covering what's happening. So I just want to clarify that there was a lot of attention given to credentialing, and is actually a smaller part of our discussion and report that was issued. So I just wanted to clarify that. With regard to the other parts of the report, I think it's best to break them out into some of the key themes that we covered around implementing protocols and practices. We covered safety, community relationships, communications, equity, and accountability. As far as safety goes, we realize that's our number one priority. It should be our number one priority to keep our community safe before, during, and after these events. It's also imperative that we keep our officers safe during these events, and everyone else that may not necessarily be a part of the demonstration or protest, but maybe bystanders. So safety has to be our number one priority, and is our number one priority. We also recognize that we need better communications. And this again goes before, during, and after events. And we need to have better communications with event organizers, where we can identify those organizers and reach out to them beforehand. But we also need to include the public, media, observers, and anyone else associated with an event. And so our intent is to really work on building that communications beforehand, setting up the expectations, and everyone is briefed on the same material, and we get different perspectives on an event too, outside of the normal event organizers that we deal with, from other members of the community that may have some vested interest in what's happening or will be happening during an event. We also need to make sure that there's fairness and that everyone is treated with respect and dignity, and that our rules, policies, and enforcement are applied to everyone fairly. I want to be very specific about this, though, that if any individual commits a crime, we will treat that to the extent of the full extent of the law. And we will be pursuing those that commit a crime during these events and hold them accountable. And fourth, we really need to have a community conversation around First Amendment assemblies and what are expectations around this, and to make sure that those are clear expectations and they meet the expectations of the community and how we, as Kalamazoo, which is a very diverse community, which makes us very strong and desirable, but it also means that we have diverse opinions when things do occur. So we need to have some forum for that diverse discussion to occur. And we plan on allowing for that as we move forward. And then finally, accountability. And this one, is accountability kind of across the board. Obviously, the city, public safety, there needs to be accountability when we act during these events. We can plan to the nth degree, but as we know, with human behavior, things can turn on an instant, and we have to be agile and flexible, but at the same time, make sure that we have accountability for what our actions are. And again, going back to the number one priority of keeping our community safe. So building out that accountability for the city, the community, the city commission, that needs to be part of what we do. And I'm very pleased with the work that this subcommittee did in about 10 days or less. Appreciate Vice Mayor Griffin, Commissioner Prado, and Commissioner Cunningham for taking out time in their busy schedules to work on this. And we intend on continuing this work and build out what I just covered even more and provide updates as we move forward in doing this work around hopefully what would be successful events/protests in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Ritzman. Appreciate that report. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing, E. And it is right now, I am going to open a public hearing to receive comments on an ordinance to rezone 118 Fellows Avenue and 110, 114, 120, and 124 Burr Oak Street from Zone CN1, Commercial Neighborhood District, and Zone CC, Commercial Community District, to Zone RM 36, Residential Multi-Dwelling District. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, do we have any public comments on this?
Mayor Anderson, we have no comments on this item.
All right. With no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Knott.
Or.
Okay. Motion supported by Commissioner Pradel. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
and Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Thank you. The ordinance is adopted. Next is the consent agenda. Manager Ritzma.
We have 7 items this evening. First is the approval of a 3-year sole source contract with Asana Incorporated for the purchase of project management software in the amount of $103,950. Next is the approval of a sole source purchase with A&P Consulting for conducting a small business needs assessment in the amount of $130,000. Next is the approval of a 1-year contract extension with Salinas LLC for cationic emulsion polymer K144L in the amount of $245,185.93. Next is the approval of a 1-year contract with Republic Services for the transportation and disposal of screenings from the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant in the amount of $111,800. Next is the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 10, Employee Retirement Systems, Sections 2-243 and 2-245. Next is the adoption of a resolution, number 1 through 3, for the purpose of approving the 2019 Kalamazoo Mall Sidewalk Maintenance Agreement at a per front foot cost of $15.0753. Adoption of resolution number 3 schedules a public hearing for October 19, 2020. And finally, approval of a grant in the amount of $100,000 from the Community Planning and Economic Development Department for the rehabilitation of an existing building owned by the Edison Neighborhood Association.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 through 7 and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Urban. Is there support?
Or.
Supported by Commissioner Hess. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Next is our regular agenda. We have 3 items on our regular agenda. Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, are there any public comments directed towards any of the items on the regular agenda?
Yes, Mayor, we've received about 29 comments regarding the items that are on the regular agenda, and we'll go ahead and play those now for you.
My name is Sandy Barry Loken, and I have lived in the city of Kalamazoo for 30 years. I'm calling to ask that you support the proposed updates to Chapter 18. Housing provides each of us and our families comfort, stability, and safety from day to day. We all deserve a fair chance at a place to live. No one wants to live in a community that denies adults and children access to housing because of discrimination or biases. A recent local survey shows that members of our community are experiencing discrimination while trying to access housing, a disproportionate number of whom are people of color, with over half identifying as Black. Our society continues to present a false narrative about those experiencing housing obstacles being to blame and in need of changing themselves to be worthy of housing. This is a false and demeaning narrative. Imagine what our community would look like if every adult and child could access housing. As a community, we can no longer turn our backs on the systemic obstacles faced by fellow community members around housing. Please vote in support of the proposed updates to Chapter 18. Thank you.
This is Mary Harper. I'm a longtime resident of Kalamazoo. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. You may know that our cause at the foundation is the benefit of the whole community, and that we think anti-discrimination practices are the way forward. We share our ideals widely in Kalamazoo County, and the truth is we have a widely shared value of housing for all. So we support and believe that the Housing Equity Ordinance provides protections for people who suffer discrimination in getting and keeping adequate housing. Among other things, it would eliminate having eviction or conviction records, or the record you get when you are a victim of domestic violence used against someone seeking housing. The housing itself, or the vouchers, fees, and the whole system. It would also eliminate the religious exemptions, which allow religious institutions to discriminate. And that's a good thing. You shouldn't be able to say that your religion prevents you from treating people fairly. And in this regard, the ordinance is a good thing, and it should be adopted. Thanks very much for listening.
Hello, this is David Feaster. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling for to offer my support for the Fair Chance Housing Ordinance for home equity. Equity. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rabbi Simone Schicker from Temple B'nai Israel, which is located in the city limits of Kalamazoo. I also live within the city limits of Kalamazoo. Temple B'nai Israel is a proud member of Isaac, Interfaith Strategy for Advocacy and Action in the Community. It is as a member of Isaac, a citizen of Kalamazoo, and a member of the clergy that I'm calling to ask the City Commission to vote yes this evening on the Housing Equity Ordinance. We live in a city that does not offer the same opportunities to all of its residents, and we have seen this all the more so since March. I'm blessed to have a place to call home, but not all of our citizens are able to do the same. We must act on behalf of all our residents and enact the Housing Equity Ordinance. Without a change in policy, we will never make a positive change in the lives of residents in this city. Our community has struggled with the issues of homelessness for years, and COVID-19 has only exacerbated this epidemic. We owe it to each and every person who calls Kalamazoo home to pass this Housing Equity Ordinance. There are too many examples of housing discrimination in Kalamazoo to name them all, both recent and throughout our history. We are the inheritors of a racist system of redlining, and we must make change. We must implement this Housing Equity Ordinance. I thank Vice Mayor Griffin for her leadership on this issue and ask both our mayor and the city commissioners to vote yes on the Housing Equity Ordinance when it comes to a vote this evening. Thank you.
My name is James Briganti. I am a Michigan resident, not from Kalamazoo. I'm interested in investing, and I have a pending sales agreement to purchase a 6-unit rental property in the city of Kalamazoo. I just learned about the proposed HRO, and quite frankly, I'm appalled. I think it's absurd. It makes it impossible for landlords to properly screen tenants. It burdens us with the cost of rectifying damages after tenants who are not collectible move out. If this HRO passes, I will not be purchasing rental property in the city of Kalamazoo, and I'm quite sure many other investors are going to take flight. Please do not burden investors in your great city with this current HRO. Thank you for your consideration.
Good evening. My name is Douglas King, and I've lived in the Kalamazoo City and/or County all of my life. To Mayor David Anderson, Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin, City Manager Jim Ritzema, and our esteemed city commissioners. I am both humbled and honored to serve as the senior pastor of Grace Covenant Ministries, as well as on the executive committee for Isaac. As noted in an earlier letter, as individuals in a community, We can no longer turn our backs on the systematic obstacles faced by fellow community members around housing. Housing is a right, and no one should be denied the opportunity of housing based on past evictions, convictions, or source of income which disproportionately impacts marginalized communities. We must not be a city of polarizing extreme wealth and extreme poverty. Poverty negatively impacts valued individuals, children, and families. I'm asking each of you, as devoted public officials, to stand for equity and justice and to help make these needed changes. Therefore, I'm urging you to courageously address the many areas of injustice in housing and vote to unanimously pass the Housing Equity Ordinance. Finally, I'm asking that you be our city's driving force that furthers Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s beloved community here in Kalamazoo, a place in which our deepest values of abundance, equity, community, hope, and most of all, love are infused into our policies and practices so that every individual is held as beloved. Blessings to each of you, and thank you for your time and service to our community.
My name is Wendy Floor, and I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo, living in Millwood, and a proud member of the Isaac community. I'm calling in support of the housing ordinances being discussed this evening. These new ordinances would give people a chance to get back on their feet after encountering difficult circumstances in the past. It is important to assure all our local residents are given equitable opportunities to secure housing. The ordinances will help protect families from discrimination in housing, such as bias against those with prior convictions, prior evictions, and limited monetary resources to pay for multiple application fees. This also provides a much-needed civil rights board to conduct oversight into housing practices. I ask that you consider the benefits to the people on the margins in our community and vote in favor of these housing ordinances. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Parker James. I'm calling from the Isaac Housing Task Force, also Southwest Michigan DSA. I live just outside of Kalamazoo now, but I was a renter in Kalamazoo for a few years, and I want to call and ask your support for the Housing Equity Ordinance. I want to thank the Vice Mayor for bringing this very important ordinance forward that's going to bring Kalamazoo in line with other cities across the state and across the country that have protections like these. This ordinance is overdue, and it's a start. And I think that building off of, the equity piece is going to be really crucial with housing in Kalamazoo. We need to make sure that housing is affordable, especially for those who really need it most. So I implore you to think about that with decisions moving forward. Consider how our policies can, be reparations, for the Black community who have been most harmed by housing policies in the past from this country, and how we can, as a city and as a greater community, protect people from the housing market, because housing, the market treats housing as a commodity rather than a human right. We know housing is a human right, so we need to make sure that our government is doing what it can to make sure that all of our neighbors have housing. So thank you so much for voting on this tonight, and please pass the Housing Equity Ordinance.
Hi, my name is Ellen Nelson, and I live in Kalamazoo. I'm calling in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance. As an Isaac Housing Task Force member and concerned citizen of Kalamazoo, I've watched this ordinance unfold from the beginning. Every part of it is well-informed, entirely possible, and absolutely necessary. I want to live in a city that does everything it can to end discrimination, that works positively towards solving the housing crisis, and that it uplifts the real lived experiences of the many over the unfounded fears of the few. When Kalamazoo has a chance to take steps in the right direction of justice and to be a leader to the cities and counties around us, there is no question that we must. Thank you for listening.
Hello. My name is Tanya Bellamy. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I am calling tonight in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance. This ordinance would strengthen protections for gender and sexual identity, people with previous evictions, people using housing vouchers, people using a county identification card, and for those previously incarcerated. Again, I am calling in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance. You all know what the right thing to do is, and I hope you'll do that. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Pat Vinge, and I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm a deacon at St. Martin of Tours Episcopal Church and a member of the Isaac Housing Task Force. I'm speaking in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance that will be voted on this evening. There is something very basic, very true, and very life-giving about this ordinance. The Housing Equity Ordinance validates that we in Kalamazoo believe that a home is a human right. Families cannot thrive if sons and daughters and mothers and fathers don't know where they will sleep at night. Will it be in their car or at the mission or on a friend's sofa or living room floor? Many hardworking people still experience homelessness in our community. This ordinance is also known as the Fair Chance Ordinance. Barriers which have prevented people from finding a place to live are being lifted. People will be seen as individuals, not as part of an undesirable group, and past difficulties will be required to be evaluated on an individual basis. In short, people will be given a fair chance. The ordinance eliminates the ability to discriminate based on a blanket policy in which discretion does not enter into the decision of whether to rent to an individual or not. This ordinance will not solve the affordable housing shortage in Kalamazoo, but it will begin to address some of the barriers to housing in our community. It will help ensure that all residents have fair access to housing and have housing choice. It affirms that a home is a human right. And it moves us one step closer to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s beloved community. Kalamazoo is only made stronger when all its people thrive. Commissioners, I know you to be people who respect and value human rights, and I know that you will vote to enact this Housing Equity Ordinance. Thank you.
Good evening. This is Toby Hannah Davies from the Isaac and TRHT Housing Task Force, and I do live in the city. I was surprised to hear some of the rental property owners and managers call themselves housing providers. Since 1992, when I first started working to increase the supply of affordable housing, the term housing providers has always meant the nonprofits, the organizations and agencies whose mission it is to provide housing to the people who can't get into other housing in the community. Housing providers, in my experience, take it very seriously that housing is a human right. Housing providers seek ways to help every person afford a place to call home and give whatever support might be needed for every person to succeed in their home. So I'm hoping and praying that after the City Commission passes the new Chapter 18 and 18A Housing Equity Ordinance tonight, we'll have a lot more property owners who truly are housing providers, who are growing into the spirit of that name, treating every person as someone who deserves a place to call home. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. This is Rochelle Habeck. I live at Parkview Hills in the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you so much for taking up the issue of the housing ordinance changes and for your concern to find better solutions here. I wanted to speak in favor of the changes that have been proposed. I have volunteered with Cradle Kalamazoo for many years and am now on the Health Equity Committee. And it's very clear that housing, safe housing, accessible housing, affordable housing is a consequential piece of the safety and survival of Black infants in our most at-risk zip codes and their moms. And I think that the current ordinances that allow landlords to screen by labels, if you will, categories of people, don't serve us well and don't allow these women to be considered on their own individual merits. For example, those now that they are caring for a baby who may want to leave a domestic violence situation, they may have had to forego a prior lease, and they also might be receiving a voucher of some sort. So I think that in order to maximize the safety of these women and their babies, we need to provide a more open situation for people to be able to apply equitably and to be considered on their own individual merits. Thank you so much, and I wish you well on the very challenging issues that you are taking up, and I think they will make our city a much better place for everybody. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Commissioners. My name is Sharday Chambers. I am a resident of the City of Kalamazoo, and the reason why I'm calling is I'm calling in support of the Vice Mayor for the housing that's going to be voted on tonight. And I believe that all you guys should definitely vote yes and that this should be passed. I have many friends that face housing discrimination from being evicted due to domestic violence. Some people not even getting a chance to prove themselves with convictions, and they have made better choices with their lives now and have gotten jobs and have the income and get turned away from quality housing. And I feel that Kalamazoo needs to be a step in the right direction. We need to change, and we need to change and set the tone for every other city that looks at us. This should be one of our changes with the housing, and I am in full support, and I hope that all of you guys are in full support and that you vote for this to pass and that we move forward, because we have so many people in the city of Kalamazoo that do need housing, that don't need to be turned down for things that they've worked towards to be better, whether it be if they were a convicted felon and they worked towards to change their life, whether it be somebody that ran into an eviction of hard times just because of their financial situations and now they're in a better place. We need to start looking at new avenues and really setting up our housing to be better and to make sure that we're changing this city for the better. We have too many people that are homeless, too many people that qualify for housing, and we need to step up. We need to raise the bar, and we need to change that. And I really hope that tonight goes well. I hope that you guys are all in full support, and I hope that we can make this go forward so we can get this ready for the next phases to come. And I'm ready to see Kalamazoo move on. And I thank you guys for tonight, and that's it. Thanks. Bye.
Hello, my name is Carrie Pickett-Irway. I'm President and CEO of the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. I do not live in the city, but the Kalamazoo Community Foundation offices are located within the city of Kalamazoo, and our organization pays a payment in lieu of taxes annually. The Kalamazoo Community Foundation believes that this community can be a place where we realize the ideals of racial equity and racial justice. We believe Kalamazoo can be the most equitable place to live. As a community, we can no longer turn our backs on the systemic obstacles faced by fellow community members around housing. Housing is a right,
and no one should be denied the opportunity of housing based on past evictions, convictions, or source of income, which disproportionately impacts marginalized communities. We cannot be a city of polarizing extreme wealth and extreme poverty. Poverty negatively impacts valued individuals, children, and families. Our society continues to present a false narrative of those experiencing housing obstacles being to blame and in need of changing themselves to be worthy of housing. This is a false and demeaning narrative. Currently, Kalamazoo has one of the highest populations of homeless children in the state. And although Kalamazoo County is only 11% Black, nearly 64% of the homeless population is Black. Of nearly 700 people surveyed, eviction and convictions were the most named barrier after costs-related issues. 41% of our homeless population identified as a victim or survivor of domestic violence, which is often associated with eviction. As a public official, you have the capacity and ability to stand for equity and justice and help to make a difference. I urge you to take the necessary steps and vote in support of the proposed updates to Chapter 18 so that Kalamazoo can be the place that demonstrates racial justice. I just want to say a huge thank you to all of those who helped to bring these recommendations forward. The TRHT, our friends at Isaac, as well as commissioners and the Vice Mayor, Patrice Griffin. Thank you all so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Genesis. I am a Kalamazoo resident, and I'm calling in to say that I support the housing policy. Thank you.
Hi, this is Wendy Fields. I do live in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm also the president of the Kalamazoo branch of the NAACP. We are in full support of the housing equity ordinance and anticipate that it will be passed unanimously tonight. We're excited. We know that there's a lot more that we have to do, but this is a step in the right direction, and we hope that you will see that as we do and move forward with it. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Yes, hello. This is Joe Byers. I live in the Vine neighborhood. I'm calling to voice my full support for the anti-discrimination housing policy ordinance. It wasn't clear during the last meeting if the reporting process and determination process will still be decided by all white men. I hope during the meeting that will be clarified for us. And otherwise, I think this is a step in the right direction. Our city needs to take, and I 100% support, and I hope it passes unanimously. Thank you.
My name is Adrian Vasquez, and I live in Kalamazoo Township. I'm calling in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance. This ordinance is to protect our children during this pandemic so they can have a safe and quality home. This ordinance is important to protect community members with criminal background history. This ordinance is going to protect members with prior evictions. This ordinance is going to protect community members who don't have the monetary resources to pay multiple application fees. This ordinance is going to have a civil rights board with oversight and ability to enact accountability. This ordinance is important to protect community members from discrimination. As a member of the community that works directly with the Latinx community, and I was part of a focus group that many of our families are concerned about housing, the cost, and the disadvantage they are in most times when looking for housing. This ordinance is what it is. It's going to bring equity to Kalamazoo. It's going to bring equity to housing for everyone. So safe and quality housing is a human right. Thank you. Gracias.
Hello, this is Emily Hazel. I'm a resident of the Stewart neighborhood in Kalamazoo and one of the co-chairs of Isaac's Anti-Racism Task Force. I'm calling to voice my support of the proposed updates to Chapter 18 and the addition of Chapter 18A, addressing fair housing. Kalamazoo urgently needs housing policies that encourage landowners and property managers to uphold equitable housing practices. Kalamazoo residents need fair access to housing that considers previous circumstances and prohibits blanket rejections so they have the foundational resources they need to prosper and thrive. This ordinance aligns with the plans and goals of Imagine Kalamazoo 2025, specifically shared prosperity and complete neighborhoods, and will help to uplift our entire community. Safe and quality housing is a human right for all and is a priority in Kalamazoo. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Pat Strumstum. I am a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I am the Director of Outreach at First Presbyterian Church in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm leaving a comment for fair and equitable housing. For the last 13 years, I've worked with the homeless and those who suffer from mental health and substance abuse in Kalamazoo, the city of Kalamazoo. I serve a weekly meal at our church, and we call it Celebrate the Vision. We're celebrating the vision where all are equal and all can share in the stability of this country of ours and this great city of ours. I'm a lifelong resident and member of the city of Kalamazoo. I know from my experience, personal experience, and my experience of working with men and women and families who lack housing stability, that they can never regain full health, both mental health and recovery from substance abuse without a roof over their heads. It's an upward struggle and it's dangerous. And I hope that we can be a community and a city that offers some fair housing so that people who suffer from these different things can have a place where they can rest in peace at night and during the day when they need to. Thank you.
Hi, this is Leonard Swanson. I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo, and I'm calling to voice my support for the housing equity ordinance. I'm a social worker by trade that works in the criminal justice system and its intersection with behavioral health, and so I know how much housing can be a barrier to reentry and success of community reentry. So being protected from housing discrimination based on prior arrests or conviction records would be a benefit to this population that has already a lot of barriers going against them. Furthermore, anyone in poverty who is lucky enough to get a housing voucher, as rare they are, should not face additional discrimination based on their source of income. So for these reasons, as well as a number of other solid reasons that the ordinance should pass, I've voiced to support the housing equity ordinance. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Casey Coker. I live in Kalamazoo in the Stewart neighborhood. I am calling regarding the housing equity ordinance. I first want to lift up Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin and all of the tireless, countless hours of work she has put into making our community safer, more equitable, and a better place overall. So thank you so much, Vice Mayor, for everything you do every day for us in Kalamazoo. I am calling to support the housing equity ordinance for several reasons. We need more housing available for our residents in Kalamazoo. We need safer housing available. We need protection for those people who are seeking housing, particularly those who are in marginalized populations who have been disallowed from housing in the past due to racism, segregation, and bias. We need support for folks at different levels of education and work experience, people with histories of incarceration. And we also need support for those experiencing intimate partner violence, which we know is increasing steadily in this community. In this community, we have landlords that have significant amount of power related to bias, racism, and segregation. And we need an oversight committee to make sure that people experiencing homelessness, people who have families, and that people who need housing have access to housing. This is essential. This is an essential human need. This should be non-negotiable. And I think this is something that should be discussed and passed immediately and addressed immediately. And people should follow suit and do support Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin, because she has steadily listened to every voice in this community and lifted them up. And through this ordinance, this housing equity ordinance will make sure that people have a safe place to live. And that is a basic human right and should be non-negotiable in this community. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Erin Bensinger. I live within the city limits. I also serve on the Vine Neighborhood Association Board of Directors. And with those two capacities of mine in mind, I would like to voice my support for the proposed updates to Chapter 18 and Chapter 18A of the Fair Housing Ordinances that Vice Mayor Griffin and others have been so supportive of and pushing forward. We are still living through a pandemic. We are on the front of a housing crisis. There is no better time than now to start amending and getting serious about amending the City Code of Ordinances as it relates to keeping people housed, because keeping people housed is the key to keeping people safe, comfortable, and able to get what they need. Thanks so much.
Hi, my name is Ian Magnuson. I live on West Main Hill, just on the edge before reaching Kalamazoo Township, but I am a city resident. I'm calling to support the adoption of the Housing Equity Ordinance. It's a major first step in the right direction to rebalance the tenant-landlord power distribution in favor of a more equitable and successful city. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Don Cooney. I do live in the city, and I'm calling to offer my strong support for the Housing Equity Ordinance before you tonight. All of our hearts go out to seeing so many people on our streets, and I know that the city can't solve all of this problem, but this Housing Equity Ordinance is something we can do, and it is an extension of the Human Rights Ordinance that we passed a number of years ago. So I am sure that you want to do this, and I am sure that it is the right thing. And I urge you to take this opportunity to show your love for all of our citizens and pass this Housing Equity Ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Hello, I am the Reverend Rachel Lonberg, the minister at People's Church of Kalamazoo, the stakeholder representative on the Foundation for Excellence Board, and a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I am calling tonight to urge you to support the ordinances on non-discrimination and fair housing. As you know, these ordinances have the potential to end discrimination based on source of income, criminal history, and experience of domestic violence or eviction. It is my faith that no one is defined by the worst thing they've done or the worst thing that's happened to them. No one is beyond redemption. All are worthy of love, care, and equal treatment under the law. I know that this is the tenet of many faiths and a conviction held by many people in our community, religious or not. Everyone needs a home. And this ordinance will take us further to make sure everyone in our community has a safe and stable place to live. This is always important, but it's especially important now as so many families, including my own, are dealing with remote learning. I am currently supporting a kindergartner who is doing remote learning, and it is very hard. My heart breaks for the families without stable housing who are trying to manage this. It is so difficult. And I worry that our most vulnerable children are going to be punished and are going to suffer long-term educational consequences because of the worst things that their parents did or that happened to them. And that is not right. We do not punish children. So please support these ordinances. And I want to thank especially our Vice Mayor, as well as the good people at Isaac and TRHT who brought us this far. Good evening. Thank you for your service to our community.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tammy Ray, and I reside within the city. I am calling to voice my support for the Housing Equity Ordinance. I'm also asking that the City Commission votes yes to pass this ordinance tonight, as everyone deserves access to housing. Thank you.
My name is Elena Mireles Hill. I do not live in Kalamazoo, but I work in Kalamazoo at the Kalamazoo Community Foundation as the Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm calling this evening in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance. As a community and as a city, issues of racism and discrimination have been all too common in many of our sectors, and I have seen this directly in my work over the last 7 years across the community. We know it is also very present within many parts of our housing sector. We know local surveys have demonstrated that housing discrimination is disproportionately impacting people of color, and especially Black adults and children at high rates. However, low percentages of individuals are actually reporting it due to lack of an established fair housing laws and housing enforcement that would allow community members a direct and fair process to report incidents. We also know due to local surveys that eviction and conviction records are some of the most common named barriers to housing. Kalamazoo residents deserve better. They deserve a community where they will not be discriminated against based on their source of income, their status as a victim of domestic violence, prior conviction history, or other issues of bias. All Kalamazoo residents deserve equal opportunities to fair housing. This ordinance will ensure a more equitable approach and further protections around issues that are unjustifiably impacting our local communities of color. And this would be a win for Kalamazoo, and this would be a win for this commission in doing the right thing and in maximizing efforts to eliminate racism, bias, and discrimination in the housing sector. I urge the commission to support the Housing Equity Ordinance this evening.
Hello, my name is Jessica Glenn. I'm an attorney who lives and works in the city of Kalamazoo. I am calling in support of the city ordinance amendments around public house or the housing ordinance, and in support of that, I've represented survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking my entire career, over 10 years, and the amount of housing discrimination and issues related to houselessness for survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking compounds their ability, their traumatization and their ability to break free from their perpetrator. This ordinance will go a long way to ensuring that survivors can stay in their homes, that they avoid eviction by their landlords, and that they're not discriminated against when they are in housing because they are victims of these crimes. I commend the Vice Mayor tremendously on all of her advocacy and efforts, and I look forward to passage of this historic change to our ordinance. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Kathy Cooney. I live within the city of Kalamazoo, and firstly, I want to thank you all for all the hard work you've been doing on this ordinance. It's admirable, and I truly appreciate it because I think it's very important, this ordinance, and long overdue in this city. I especially I really appreciate that the source of income change. I see that as very important. I've seen a lot of people who have different forms of income, and they have been turned down for housing because of simply where they get their income from, and that's just wrong. It shouldn't matter where they get their income from. And I say that because of my experience as a social worker within the community for over 20 years. I also used to work with women who are survivors of domestic assault, and oftentimes would find that they had a very difficult time finding housing simply, again, because they had the wrong partner. And so that they had this on their record, and they had damages that might have accrued, types of things, and things that were out of their control that they no longer would be exposed to, but yet they're not able to get the housing that they're requesting because of that the past mistake of someone else. And the county ID, I think that's a wonderful idea. Not everybody has a Michigan driver's license, and acceptance of the county ID is something that's very valuable. So I urge you all to vote yes on this. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Davis. I live in Kalamazoo, and I am the Executive Director of Isaac. Good evening to our mayor, vice mayor, city commissioners, and staff. During the last public comment, part of my message was broken up, so I wanted to say it again. We are so thankful to Vice Mayor Patrice for sharing her housing brief some years back that she researched and wrote. That was a needed catalyst for this work and for this ordinance. We also wanted to say thank you to our vice mayor through the whole process and all of the engagement for staying the course for equity. Even when comments, statements, and opinions were given that were offensive and laced with bigotry and racism. That's what Black leaders and people of color leaders and officials experience. They experience the same racism in the process of their equity work that they are working to dismantle. Thank you for bringing this housing equity ordinance before the commission. Safe and quality housing is a human right. It's time to stop blaming our community members who are experiencing housing inequities and begin addressing our systems. And we must humanize our systemic work. The beloved community members who sat, ate, and talked with us were mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, grandmothers, and grandfathers. Family members who had different abilities that impacted housing, who had past convictions years ago that still impact housing, who worked hard, even 2 jobs, but couldn't find housing or couldn't afford the multiple fees, who mentioned they were treated like they were nothing by some when looking for help, who had left unhealthy relationships and or had evictions, having a hard time finding housing, and whose health concerns impacted their housing. There were children and grandbabies at our focus group with their family members, coloring and playing as we talked. Through the rightful tears, anger, urgency, truth, sadness, and recounting of painful instances, thank you to all our focus group participants for your courage to tell your story. We look forward to sharing more of your voices very soon. And to the wonderful African-American gentleman who stood at the door saying when we had reached capacity, please let me in this room. I need to be in this room. I need to be here. Sir, thank you for knowing that your voice held power, and it did. During our focus groups, we were told that many times participants would give their voice and saw no change, but the change happens tonight. The change happens tonight. Lastly, we need a civil rights board with community members with reporting and enforcement mechanisms for transparency and accountability. Your vote tonight in support for the Housing Equity Ordinance helps us move toward the beloved community by addressing systemic racism. Thank you, Commission.
Hello, this is Barbara Potter calling, Iris Potter. I currently don't live in the city of Kalamazoo limits, but I do live in the township and have worked in housing for many, many years with homeless. And so I do support this housing ordinance fully, and I would recommend approval this evening. And I would also recommend that there be more real affordable housing in this community. That is a major problem as the rents continue to raise. Thank you very much. My number is 269-271-4342. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hello, this is Stacy Ledbetter, retired City of Kalamazoo employee. I am not a city resident. but I still have an authentic heart for and still do other work and community service in the city of Kalamazoo. Greetings, Mayor Anderson, Vice Mayor Griffin, and Commissioners. This message is for you. The distinguished late civil rights pioneer and Congressman John Lewis once quoted in part, "If you come together with a mission and it's grounded with love and a sense of community, you can make the impossible possible." And I add that tonight, here you all are at this moment in history with the greater community watching, with votes in your collective power to be the change. Positive and possible change for equity, fairness, dignity, empathy, and opportunity that the Housing Equity Ordinance can foster. I have not viewed the passing of this ordinance as a win-lose situation. Landlords are entrepreneurs who want to thrive, of course, but it should be an outcome that is not supported by discriminatory practices and systems, whether aware or unaware. Please vote as if your personal pathway to a housing opportunity depended on it. Right is right. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leatrice Fullerton. I am a resident of Kalamazoo, and I live in the city limits. Calling to say that I am in full support of the housing ordinance and would like everyone to vote in favor of a non-discriminatory housing practice across the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you for your patience. Any questions or comments, please call me, 269-352-2006. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shalana Lewis. I am the director of the Truth Racial Healing Transformation Kalamazoo. I'm also a resident of this city in the Vine neighborhood, and also a landlord. I would like to just call to support the housing ordinance and all the city staff that have been working on it, and the commissioners, especially Vice Mayor Griffin. We've been working really hard on this effort for quite a while now, and just know that this is going to have such a huge impact on folks' ability to get housing in our community moving forward, especially knowing that there's so many opportunities to get support for folks who are on a lower income and can't afford the average rent in the area because of that. So just thank you, and I would also like to just continue to offer support, doing the equity work at the city and really living into those values, especially in housing, but even in other areas such as policing and just the management of the city as a whole. We're continuing to support the effort to push for that in any way we can. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Hoffman, and I live in the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you to the courageous and strong commissioners who will vote in favor of Chapter 18 and Chapter 18A. Your yes vote is sending a very loud message that everyone deserves a safe, affordable place to live. Your yes vote will empower men, women, and children to hold their heads up, knowing that our city has leadership that cares about them, regardless of race, income, and social status. Kalamazoo will be a better city tonight than we were yesterday. Your strength, your courage, and your commitment to those who are left marginalized will speak volumes not only to our county, but to our state. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
I ask that you do not enact the HRO as written. I ask that it be sent back to the drafting table and that you require the drafting committee to include at least 4 landlords. You want help from the landlords to house the homeless. We housing providers are the ones who know how it can be done. Yet you refuse to ask us for our ideas and blatantly ignored our cries for help. Why? Because the drafters know it's unfair. If the drafters of the HRO were telling the truth and had written an ordinance that was fair and just, they would have had no reason to refuse the housing provider's request to help write the ordinance. The drafters saying that we housing providers were given an opportunity for input is a misrepresentation of the truth. We were given an opportunity to react, but not to help write. Their refusal smacks of hypocrisy. Likewise, allowing only 3 minutes to make comments at these meetings is not the same as sitting at the table and being heard. Input on the HRO was provided by Truth. One of Truth's covenants is listening to all sides and working together to form solutions. That was not practice here. Rather, we landlords who you are asking to help have purposefully been left out of the discussion. Why? If this ordinance passes, you commissioners will have allowed the victims of some bad landlords to write unfair rules for us all. That is not justice, it's discrimination. With the passage of the flawed HRO, the City Commission can collectively pat itself on the back like your heroes who have solved the insufficiency of low-income housing in Kalamazoo. You'll have lifted the tragic problem of homelessness off of your shoulders and dumped it into the lap of the housing providers. How convenient for you. And the HRO has the gall to threaten us with outrageous fines if we don't follow these inane rules that will prevent us from running our business in a sound and good business-like fashion. Your actions are misguided. Enacting this HRO will have the opposite effect of at least one of its goals. Instead of bringing the homeless and the housing providers together, it will drive us apart. It is unfair to the landlords. You want help from the landlords to house the homeless? We are the ones who know how this can be done. Yet you've ignorantly refused to ask us for our ideas, and you blatantly ignored our cries to help. On top of that, you threaten us with extortion. Why? I ask that you do not enact the HRO as written. I ask that it be sent back to the drafting table and that you require the drafting committee to include the landlords could either be volunteers or be nominated by staff from the city's Department of Housing and Buildings. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joanna Dales, and I live on Sheffield Drive in the city of Kalamazoo, and I am calling in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance, and I urge the Commission to support this. Every single person deserves to have a safe place to live, and I hope that you will vote in support of this Housing Equity Ordinance. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Rebecca Pollins, and yes, I live in the city of Kalamazoo at 2518 Aberdeen Drive, and I absolutely strongly support the Housing Equity Ordinance. Housing should be a right that everybody should have, and I strongly support that. Thank you. Bye.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Faison. I live in Kalamazoo Township. I work within city limits with Isaac. I'm calling in support of the Fair Housing Ordinance. I would like to thank our Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin, Isaac, and TRHT for taking the time to work on this. I pray the city commissioners will vote yes in order to implement this into our city. We as a city need to take care of one another, and we currently have a crisis going on with homelessness. This ordinance will help so many people to be able to obtain housing. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be this hard for people to obtain housing, and they shouldn't have all the obstacles against them while they're trying to do so. Racial disparities has been going on for so long that this Fair Housing Ordinance has to be implemented in order to try to make things a little bit more fair for people to be able to get housing. And it's sad that we would really have to continually say housing is a human right. Housing is a human right. Housing is a human right. And I pray that people see that and understand it. Eliminate a lot of discrimination, eliminate a lot of picking and choosing, and allow everyone to be able to obtain housing. I think it was said best that no matter how many houses are built or apartments, and until we start knocking down some of these obstacles, none of that is going to even matter. So once again, vote yes. I'm praying that the city of Kalamazoo can also make a difference show other counties, other cities, other states that this is something that is actually helping our people, and we're able to take care of each other, and they can actually look and see and start doing the same within communities. Set a trend. Start it. Vote yes. Thank you.
My name is Sarah Ruggles, and I am a resident of the City of Kalamazoo and board chair of the Vine Neighborhood Association. With hope for a more just and equitable future during a time of deep unrest and uncertainty, the Board of Directors and staff of the VNA unanimously and enthusiastically endorsed the proposed updates to Chapter 18 of the Kalamazoo Code of Ordinances, often referred to as the Housing Equity Ordinance. These changes are thoughtful, informed, and precise to exact much-needed change to a broken housing system that serves those who own property and leaves renters at large, and especially our most vulnerable city and neighborhood residents, literally and figuratively out in the cold. During many hours of public comment given to city commissioners over the last several months by concerned and engaged citizens of Kalamazoo, it has become abundantly clear that the Kalamazoo community and Vine residents specifically overwhelmingly support this ordinance as well, and that the few voices of opposition are almost exclusively those of landlords and stakeholders in the broken and insufficient housing system. Housing ownership and management is a privilege afforded disproportionately according to whiteness, wealth, and increasing corporate control of housing markets. These are the result of hundreds of years of discriminatory policies and systems of slavery, Jim Crow laws, redlining and racially restrictive covenant deeds, racist zoning codes and ordinances, block busting, and millions of FHA and GI Bill mortgages exclusive to white neighborhoods. This is our history, and it is irrefutable. Today's modern mechanisms of housing discrimination recreate these injustices with discriminatory credit scoring algorithms, artificially deflated appraisal values, zero-tolerance eviction policies, hyper-incarceration, mortgage steering, debt-to-income criteria, predatory lending, and countless institutional practices that disproportionately disenfranchise communities of color, those with disabilities, and other vulnerable populations. 2019 marked a 50-year low in Black home ownership in the United States. We look forward to seeing city officials introduce future legislation addressing systemic inequalities and barriers not just in rental property, but in property ownership. As owners and stewards of a number of residential rentals in the heart of the Vine neighborhood, we recognize that housing security and accessibility is a fundamental component of any healthy and vibrant community, deserved by all. Revisioning policy to undo systemic injustice is a long and arduous process, but these proposed changes to Chapter 18 are an important step toward improved outcomes for residents of our neighborhood and our...
Hello, this is Carolyn Pashek. I am not a City of Kalamazoo resident, but I am very interested in the housing ordinance, and once hopefully the ordinance is passed by Kalamazoo City, I hope to work with the City of Portage, where I live, to pass a similar ordinance in the City of Portage. I realize that the added non-discrimination classes are stand-ins for things such as race or single parents, and I don't think that Blacks should be discriminated against because they couldn't hire an attorney for a court case in order to plead down to a misdemeanor some kind of charge they happen to get and end up serving time, whereas someone who had a little more money would be able to plead, get a good lawyer and get a plea bargain for something that did not have a felony conviction on their record. And similar arguments go for the other discrimination classes. And I would like you to pass the ordinance simply because it's the right thing to do. And if we get similar ordinances in the other Kalamazoo County entities, then it'll be more equitable throughout the county. Thank you. Goodbye.
Hello, my name is Catherine Dorr. I live in the Charter Township in Westwood, and I'm calling today in support of the housing ordinance, as I think everyone should who supports housing equity. Our Patrice Griffin has put a lot of work into this ordinance to protect our most vulnerable neighbors and to try to help people out instead of having them be the victims of predatory landlords and predatory systems that take money out of their pockets in application fees or discriminate against them because of their identity. We're never going to solve our housing crisis or make any real efforts against systemic racism in Kalamazoo if we don't work toward taking better care of our neighbors and making housing more of a basic human right. There's no reason for people to be homeless when there is so much resources that should be put to better use for the good of the community. Yes. That's it. Again, my name is Catherine Dorr, and I am calling in support of the ordinance today and in support of the efforts that Patrice Griffin and Isaac and TRHT Kalamazoo and all the work that they have put into it for the last few years. Do the right thing. Pass the ordinance. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kurudama Masomere, and I live in the city limits of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I'm calling in support of the fair housing ordinance to be voted into by City Commission this evening. Our community deserves fair and just housing options, and this is a step toward a path toward equity. Thank you. Bye-bye.
My name is Adrienne Wiltzer. I work in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling to ask you for only partial support on the Chapter 18 proposed ordinance, and that the criminal section be revised to state that it is only blanket policies that are not allowed, instead of disallowing all criminal discrimination. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tamara Custer, resident of Kalamazoo City, and I am calling on behalf of the housing ordinance. I think that this housing ordinance should be passed, not just for the sole purposes of Kalamazoo having one of the highest homeless rates in the state of Michigan, but for the sole purposes of us having a high rate of homeless children in our school district. For their families not being able to get approved, let alone our couch surfing, as well as living on a fixed income with housing vouchers that they can't get approved for, as well as those people that are living in hotels without being able to get a fair chance or filling out applications and paying for these applications for housing, not even knowing if they're approved or not. I think that this will alleviate a lot of our homeless issues in our current city, as well as allowing a fair chance for the entire community to just be better. I want to thank Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin for working so hard on this ordinance, and we appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing this initiative passed. Thanks a lot.
Hello, my name is Matt Smith. I'm a resident of Kalamazoo in the Vine neighborhood. I'm a librarian, a local historian, and a housing advocate in Kalamazoo. And I'm just calling to overwhelmingly support the housing equity ordinance that's being passed tonight. And I want to lift up 4 individuals in our community specifically The first individual is Patrice Griffin. The second is Shalana Lewis. The third is Stephanie Hoffman. And the fourth is Dr. Charlotte Davis. These are four individuals that we are lucky to have in our community. They are heroes for the community, and they are housing advocates, and they're pushing for housing equity in Kalamazoo. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Daphne Ben. I live in the township, but I work in the city. And we have a high rate of social determinants. And one of the social determinants is housing. For any person that is ill, having issues or medical issues, one great thing is that when we discharge a person from the hospital, is for that person to have a stable home to go to. When they have a stable home to go to, then they are better to be able to recover from whatever they're going through. As you know, our social determinants within our city is huge, and we need to break that barrier. We need to close that gap. So by supporting the housing ordinance of 18 and 18A, we need to take action. And I hope that you would listen to all the people that are calling in that want to see this be approved, that you're going to take action, and you can bring the community together. Because right now we're divided. We don't need to be divided. We need to come together as a group to figure out how we can make Kalamazoo the best place to live. And that is breaking down the barriers of social determinants. Thank you.
My name is Marissa Harrington. I am a Kalamazoo resident. I also am a local real estate agent here. And as someone who lives and works in Kalamazoo, especially in the housing industry, I would just like to express the importance of equity and housing in the city of Kalamazoo. We try and figure out how it is that our homeless population is so high. When you have rent rates that are extremely high and unaffordable, you have requirements that are unattainable and or inequitable for certain people, especially people of color. We have to address that as a city. So I am for the changes in making sure that we have equity in our housing and affordable housing. And I would also like to note that I am not originally from this area. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, which is one of the most expensive places to live. And in comparison to Los Angeles, Kalamazoo City's rental rates are right up there. And I think that is preposterous. There's no reason why we have such a low cost of living here and everything else, and wages lower, but our rent rates are just as high. That is a problem, and it needs to be rectified. And it is our responsibility as a city to make sure that we are making sure that housing is affordable and equitable for everyone. Thank you.
My name is Zachary Lassiter. I live within the city of Kalamazoo. I want to voice my support for the changes to the housing ordinances supporting the changes tonight. But I want to also warn that this isn't going to solve everything. And I encourage the city to work more on affordable housing that people can afford. My rental building recently caught fire in April, I believe it was. And just this month, the landlord has reopened that building and relisted all the units. My old unit, which was a studio apartment at $475, is now north of $600. So the housing prices in our community continue to climb, and the most vulnerable in our community are effectively priced out of housing. And that is something the city can do something about if they choose, and I hope they choose to. But again, I want to voice my support for the changes to the housing ordinances tonight, but I also want to encourage you to continue to address the lack of affordable housing. But let's be honest, you really haven't addressed that at all.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Moore. I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling in support of the housing millage. I'm asking each of the city commissioners to please vote to affirm this millage. This is something that is needed to create stability, continuity, and to help individuals in our community who are struggling with housing insecurity. This resolution, this policy, gets us closer to equity in Kalamazoo for some of the most vulnerable people in our community, including the Black, Indigenous, people of color in the city of Kalamazoo. And this is something that is more fair and more suitable to help us to really regain some stability for our children that are earning the promise, for our families, our parents, guardians, and caregivers who are working every single day, many not at a living wage. This will offer access, opportunity. This will offer some continuity for families so that we can see less transient people moving around our community and not being able to take full advantage of the resources and opportunities that will allow them to sustain themselves, their families, and make our community stronger, more inclusive, and vibrant. Thank you to everyone who has worked on this policy. Thank you to those who have helped to advocate for it. Thank you for thinking of some of the most vulnerable people in our community in a way where you can introduce policy that can be life-changing, that can really bring some of the things that we need for families who are struggling, not just those that are homeless, but those who are working every single day and cannot afford to have decent, affordable, and healthy housing. Thank you for thinking about making sure we're creating a space, a safe and inclusive space for everybody to have access to stable housing. This is really important. It's a great start, and it's something that we desperately need. So this is a way for the city of Kalamazoo to show up, stand with, and affirm the real needs in the community of many of our residents by supporting this housing ordinance on tonight. And not only just supporting the policy, but making sure that it's fully funded so that it's implemented in a way where everyone can have access and opportunity and be able to secure decent and affordable, healthy, and permanent housing. Please vote to affirm this policy, enact it, fund it, and make it available to all in need. Thank you for your consideration, and have a good night.
Hello, I'm Regina Nelson. I live in Kalamazoo. I'm calling in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance. As an educator and educational researcher, I'm keenly aware of the importance of safe and stable housing on children's school performance. In our community, a significant amount of children are homeless and are struggling in school. Given that Kalamazoo students are starting school virtually, it's vitally important that their home learning environment is safe and stable so they can be successful. Please pass the Housing Equity Ordinance so all of our children can be academically prepared to benefit from the promise and give back to Kalamazoo. Thank you.
Hi, this is Chris Chatterton calling, and yes, I do live within the city limits of Kalamazoo on Waite Avenue. I was calling to tell you that I support the Housing Equity Ordinance. I hope I picked the right line in the menu item here. So just know that I'm just calling to support that equity ordinance, Housing Equity Ordinance. Thank you. Bye-bye.
My name's Kathleen Jordan. I live in Kalamazoo at 919 Rice. I'm calling in support of the Fair Housing Equity Act. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Jerome. I am a resident of Kalamazoo in the Edison neighborhood as well as a landlord. And I just want to give my endorsement to pass the city ordinance, the housing ordinance. The issues that our community faces in regards to discrimination continue long after people leave imprisonment. They follow them. I have personally witnessed that through my own organization, working with youth. This city ordinance will help a lot of people be able to get past some of those things. I thank you all for taking this into consideration, and I'm sure we will do the right thing as a city. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Jacob Johnson, lifelong Kalamazoo resident, fourth generation Kalamazoo Promise recipient, calling in support of the housing ordinance, and just want to push us as a community and as a city commission and local government to really, really do what we can to empower the people to help guide our local government, and also realize the urgency around racial disparities again. On many, many fronts. Housing, of course. Still looking forward to the conversation. Jim and David Anderson, Jim Ritzma, about the specific Black agenda and what we can do to really talk specifically about that here in Kalamazoo to address the disparities kind of on like a wide level. And also want to address discrimination within the city, right? That, like, it's interesting we talk about housing discrimination and we look at the discrimination currently going, legit discrimination cases going on within the city, specifically the Department of Public Safety in the case of Officer Killer. And that we really, really, really have to do some internal reflection as a city and as a county in terms of what side of racial justice and racial equity we stand on. And the fact that there's an open discrimination lawsuit or case, rather, against KDPS for discrimination against its own officers should say a lot about the state of the city and the state of our nation, in that it's up to you as leaders and it's up to us as community members to really step it up. And that if we're not intentional about that through ordinances like the housing ordinance and through a specific Black agenda, then we're talking in circles. We can address certain issues here and there, but it's time we get a comprehensive Black agenda for the city of Kalamazoo to address the racial disparities, because they're too great and it's too urgent. I want to thank the leaders that have been doing the work. Realize it's not easy work, but it's got to continue. And it's up to you, and it's up to all of us. So thank you for this work. I'm excited to see what can come out of it and what we can do and what type of example we can be. We have to do better. The disparities are on our hands and on your hands as leaders. And when we talk about housing and the issue of houselessness and how that's a human right and how we are failing in Kalamazoo, we have to do better.
Thank you very much, City of Kalamazoo. My name is Andrew Chaponda. I stay on 3522 Devonshire Avenue, Kalamazoo in the township. I am calling because Kalamazoo City is the place where I work, play, and pray. And as a result, I am very, very qualified to be talking about this issue. I also work as a housing advocate for the last 8 years. Prior to that, I was the apartments manager for one of the property companies here in Kalamazoo. The fact that we are here today to pass the housing ordinance and the human rights ordinance shows that Kalamazoo has come a long way to join the community of progressive cities in our country. It is important that we pass this because it is an idea whose time has come. Kalamazoo is a wonderful place for its residents, but housing is the number one problem that the people of Kalamazoo often confront. We should not also fool ourselves. Housing is a major problem for people of color. And because of this, we know that there are disparate impacts that affect people of color in terms of their access to housing. So I'm here today to lend our support for the process that has been going on for the last 2 years since 2018. It is important that we understand that a voucher is not a bad thing. A voucher is simply a means of payment, the same way with bailouts, the same way with the stimulus. This is all government money that is going to help people, only that in the terms of housing, it is the people who are receiving this assistance. So we should also be proud that Kalamazoo has come to a point where the people of this city will be accorded an opportunity to use government funding to access housing. I want to talk about this pandemic in that everybody who had a client or a tenant in their properties receiving a voucher, they have been paid their money. They have been paid their money because this is what vouchers do. Vouchers pay the rent for the landlord. And I encourage our landlord to accept also the eviction diversion program so that they can maintain their apartments occupied and people maintain housing. It is important that as we do this, we also know that the human rights board will provide an opportunity to adjudicate these matters. So my landlord, I want to thank you very much, especially those ones who are already accepting people with vouchers, that we can continue to do what Isaac is saying. As a member of Isaac, I'm so proud of this work. But Isaac continues to be a voice of the people, and this is just the beginning of even better things to come. So please, landlords, bear with us. Let's be in this thing together. Provide this housing to our people. Accept the voucher. So thank you very much to the city fathers and mothers of Kalamazoo. This is a wonderful opportunity. Kalamazoo will go down in the books of history of this country as a city that cares about its people. Thank you to all, and thank you to Isaac for moving this.
Yes, hello. My name is Adelante Daniel. I'm a community organizer. I live in the Kalamazoo, and I participate with many, many committees, and I volunteer in many, many groups in Kalamazoo. Good evening to Mayor Anderson. Good evening to Vice Mayor Griffin, Commissioner Hess, Commissioner Pradle, and the rest of the commissioners. I salute and I support the Housing Equity Ordinance. Have a good evening. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Gujan Caterino. I'm a resident of Kalamazoo in the Edison neighborhood. I'm also on the board of Center for Transformation, an organization helping returning citizens. And prior to COVID, I had the privilege of being at Ministry with Community weekly and within the county jail as part of Forgotten Man Ministry. And time again, I've heard from people throughout these various interactions about the difficulties of finding housing. Please make 2020 the year that Kalamazoo finally begins to reckon with its past practices and take steps toward equity. I encourage all of you to vote in favor of the Housing Equity Ordinance. All people deserve housing. Thank you so much.
Greetings, Mayor Anderson, Vice Mayor Griffin, and to all the city commissioners. My name is Monteith Morales, and I am a resident of Kalamazoo's Millwood area. I am an educator that works closely with several agencies to help those facing housing insecurity. I am calling to support the housing ordinance and to say that everyone should be granted access to safe and affordable housing, regardless of race, gender, religion, criminal history, credit scores, and socioeconomic status. My hope is that you use your privilege and the power of your vote to pass this ordinance so that everyone in our city.
Hi, my name is Renee, and I do live within the Kalamazoo city limits. I've lived in 5 different states in the United States, and I do not support the equal housing that is trying to pass. I feel safe in my neighborhood, and I do not prefer to have crime in my neighborhood, so I do not support it. I pay my taxes and I pay good money to keep me and my children safe, so I do not support the ordinance to pass this equal housing. And that is all. Thank you.
Mayor, that was the last comment that we received under the regular agenda.
All right then. Thank you so much, Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, for managing that. And I want to thank everybody that took time out of their evening to call in and leave their comments for us on the ordinances that will be before us next. So the first item on the regular agenda is item H1. City Manager Ritzma.
First item is adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 18, non-discrimination.
Thank you, Manager Ritzman. Is there a report on this item or the next item, which is related to it?
Yes, Your Honor. Our Community Planning Economic Development Director, Rebecca Kick, will make a few comments. We have our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Director, Dora Bonner, available for questions, and I believe the city attorney is going to provide some clarification on some edits as well.
All right, thank you, Manager Risma. Director Kick?
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. Good evening, Vice Mayor and Commissioners. Of course, we've presented at length the non-discrimination ordinance and the fair housing ordinance as well. And so we won't be giving you any kind of slideshow tonight. What we really just wanted to underline was the foundation of the ordinance, that all people deserve dignity and respect, and that we're seeking these positive outcomes for everyone. So while we'll only go over some minor changes tonight, we understand that the importance of the ordinance in regard to partnerships and next steps will be significant in order to make this ordinance successful for the entire city. And know that city staff has, even before you voted on this, we were already working with other organizations to begin planning on training for fair housing law. And whether this ordinance passes or not, we continue to organize those trainings in fair housing law because we feel that that is a critical step. We know that from many of the listening sessions that we have conducted, that this training would be valuable for anyone in our landlord community. Because many of the fair housing laws are not truly good and not truly being followed. So during our preparations for tonight, we did have one change to match the ordinance text with the presentation that staff had been giving during previous presentations. And Attorney Robinson is going to go ahead and cover those minor changes that we had.
Attorney Robinson, unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Kick. There are minor changes to each of the ordinances, and these are not substantive changes. They are changes that change the number. In the first one is the change to the Chapter 18, and it is at Chapter 8, Section 18-19B. This section deals with the duties of the board that is created under this ordinance, and it would add the phrase after the word City of Kalamazoo and make recommendations for resolution of investigated complaints. The addition of that language is consistent with the presentations that have been made publicly by staff, and it was more or less an oversight, and it is consistent with what staff and everybody has understood this ordinance to do, and the powers of that board going forward. So it's merely to correct an oversight, and is not a substantive change, because as I said, that it was a part and parcel of the presentations that have been made up to this date. The second amendment is in the next ordinance at 18A. And this was a suggestion made by an attorney who was representing landlords. It's at Section 18A-4E. And rather than the word required in regard to exceptions for that are required by state or federal law, it would be exceptions for things that are permitted in the context of reviewing criminal histories as permitted by either state or federal law or even local ordinance. As some may understand and know that if you have certain convictions, you may not qualify for certain housing subsidies under state and federal law. And that language was attempted to address that. So rather than the word require, the word is permitted is being substituted. Again, not a substantive change. It does not change the meaning, and in fact probably adds greater clarification to the ordinance. So the final one is not one I'm making recommendation to make. There has been some suggestion that under 18-19B in regard to how complaints should be handled, that they be handled through the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. That office is relatively new. Instead, the language that is in the ordinance talks about they'll go through the city manager or city manager's designee. The city manager has been present at all of these presentations. I think that it is his intention that he's not going to handle those things personally. He's got a lot on his plate. And since the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion exists, I would anticipate that, as has been indicated in many of the slides and presentations to the public, that those complaints would be reviewed by that office. However, the general language, city manager or the city manager's designee, is universally used, at least by me, in many ordinances, so as to give that administrative flexibility to the city manager in assigning the work where it can be best accomplished. So rather than pigeonhole where complaints should go, the object here is to give the city administration some flexibility, although as indicated, it is anticipated that initially these complaints would be handled through the DEI office.
So thank you, Attorney Robinson. I mean, just a couple of quick things. Would you mind reading the phrase that includes the word permitted so we have that?
Certainly. It would be in, it's at section 18A 4, paragraph E, and it's a rather lengthy section, so bear with me. It begins as follows. It shall be unlawful for any landlord to engage in a communication, including the production or dissemination of advertisements related to housing that expresses directly or indirectly that any person with an arrest record or conviction record will not be considered for rental or lease of the real property, or may not apply for rental or lease of real property, except as required by local, state, or federal law. The word required would be struck and the word permitted would be inserted.
Thank you, sir. Now, just for clarity here then, the two changes, or maybe all three, you suggested were not substantive changes. Therefore, you know, those changes could be made and still we could vote on the ordinance tonight. What is special about the third one that you noted?
Well, the third one is and this was internally discussed with staff. And again, it's a suggested change. I'm not suggesting that it be made. It was raised over the weekend by the vice mayor, and I explained to her why the language that appears in the ordinance as it does, that is, the city manager or the manager's designee will review these matters. And I believe that she was satisfied with my explanation. So I don't know that there's a necessity to assign review of complaints to a particular office. The idea is to give the city administration some flexibility in any of the administrative functions it carries out, rather than pigeonholing this function shall be carried out by this office and nobody else. It very well may be, if there's a great deal of complaints, that the work may overwhelm that office, and it should be shared perhaps with other staff that are accustomed to investigating discrimination matters, such as my staff and the HR staff. So there's, rather than indicating thou shalt do this all the time, what we want is to build some flexibility into the administrative service so as to best handle these complaints.
Thanks for your response, Attorney Robinson. Is there further staff report then? That's it?
Nope,
From as far as the report?
Correct. Our report is
Okay.
complete.
Commissioners, questions for staff at this time? Commissioner Hess.
Director Kick, you talked about the partnerships and working with agencies that are working on the issues of fair housing. Can you talk a little bit more, weigh in here with those possibilities of those particular partnerships as we move forward with greater fair housing?
Sure, Commissioner Hess. Both Director Bonner and myself have attended several meetings with the local South Michigan Fair Housing Center, as well as another recent meeting that we had with the Property Managers Association, and began to discuss our pathway for what training would look like, both for fair housing law, the federal fair housing law, as well as how we would incorporate our ordinance into those trainings also. And so we would want to be able to start those trainings as soon as possible. And we wanted to be sure that there were a lot of next steps that we had if the ordinance were to pass. And so again, we wanted to be sure that we reached out to as many people who could do training as possible to be sure that they were available.
Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? No other questions for staff. All right, then, commissioners, the recommended motion is to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
Do we have to make a motion to make those changes first?
No, the first thing you must do is consider the ordinance as was introduced 3 weeks ago. Once is on the floor, that becomes the main motion. Then you can make a motion to amend.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. So motion is made by Commissioner Urban.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Knott. Okay, discussion, commissioners.
At this point, I would suggest, unless you want to get into further discussion into the merits of it, is to make a motion, because you're considering Chapter 18, that you consider a motion to amend Section 18-19B, as in boy, to add after the words City of Kalamazoo, the phrase, and to make recommendations for resolution. So that the section would now read, the duties and responsibilities of the board would include review claims of discrimination brought by residents of the City of Kalamazoo and make recommendations for resolution following investigation of the claim by the city manager or the designee of the city manager.
Is there anybody who would like to make that motion? Commissioner Hess, is there support for that motion?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Knott. So is there any further discussion on that motion? I presume we'd have to act on that first, correct, Attorney Robinson?
That is correct.
Any discussion on that one change to the ordinance tonight? Seeing no discussion, Clerk Borland, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. That motion passes. Now we are back to discussion on the motion itself. Is there more discussion on the ordinance motion? Seeing no discussion on the ordinance. Am I correct in reading that? All right.
Correct. The motion before the commission is whether to adopt the ordinance as amended.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Pradel?
I'm just trying to get an idea here when would be an appropriate time to just speak on behalf of the all three items that we're voting on tonight. Is it now okay?
I mean, you have some options there, Mr. Pradel, so when you feel the most appropriate, and if you want to wait till the second one comes up, or if you'd like to get those thoughts out now, would be fine.
You know, I think it'd be appropriate to share it now, if that's okay with everyone. So one of the national organizations that we're a part of, National League of Cities, right on their main splash page has a quote that's pretty relevant, that municipalities have an obligation to use policy, practice, and procedure to advance racial equity and undo the inequities baked into law. Yeah, that's an organization that we're a member of. I think, you know, it's kind of amazing, you know, that Vice Mayor, you've been working on this for almost 2 years, I believe now, with a number of partners in the community. But it comes at a time that we're voting on this when we're facing the greatest global pandemic since 1919, that we have the worst economy since the Great Depression and one of the largest economic income disparities that we've ever seen. And that comes during a time of a fight for racial justice. It also seems appropriate to just note as well that in this past election for City Commission, that the City of Kalamazoo voted for a mayor and a vice mayor who both have largely devoted much of their lives to the fight for affordable housing and justice. I heard somebody mention in the comments, and not to diminish anybody's views, but somebody mentioned I guess the thread of saying, well, if this passes, I'm going to pull out, and a number of other people will pull out of the City of Kalamazoo. I personally think that's very short-sighted, because when you look at the next generation of people who are now earning disposable incomes and looking to locate to a community and find work, you know, they're looking for communities that share their values. They're looking for communities that lift people up and fight for social justice causes. And I think that we can show and demonstrate that we're a community that holds those values true. You can see that from a number of communities. If you go to that National League of Cities site, they'll list a number of cities that are some of the fastest growing cities in the country, and especially with the demographic of young individuals who are looking to relocate to a community to raise a family and to find work. The other thing I wanted to share as well is that in 2020, the City of Kalamazoo, this is the largest increase in funding for affordable housing causes, and this probably the city's history, and our $200 million budget. But this in itself acts to serve as a way not to just put money towards a cause, but also to make substantive change in terms of our policies and laws. I think the most significant change to address is also that this is the biggest change that we've made since we first last addressed gender identity and sexual orientation in housing in 2009. So it's been 11 years since we've done that. And this is significant with even more teeth than that. And I just want to also just take a moment to also lift up and recognize Vice Mayor Griffin for all this work and sticking with us from the start. You know, I don't know what the next 3.5 years will bring of serving on this commission, but certainly one of the greatest honors of being on here is being able to serve with you, Vice Mayor, and just the courage that you've shown and the resiliency and the drive that you've shown to see this through the end is admirable. But I also want to just acknowledge as well Director Kick, Director Bonner, City Attorney Robinson. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, pretty much any cause that's ever going on in the city, you can pretty much find these three individuals somehow involved with it. And so it's quite remarkable to see how you have really helped to see this through as well. And I just want to end with one thought as well, that we don't have to lose something in order to give others more rights and to give people more opportunity. And I just asked and posed the question on what side of history do we want to be on? Booker T. Washington, one of my favorite quotes ever, is, there are two ways of exerting one's strength. One is to push down and one is to pull up. And I hope that this commission and this act remains in the business of pulling people up. So just want to end with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Prado. Appreciate your thoughtful comments. Anyone else who wants to comment at this time, this ordinance? All right, seeing no one at this time, I guess I'll take Commissioner Prado's lead here, and I will also make my comments at this time rather than wait to the next ordinance that will come our way. And that is that in some ways, I think this is a monument to persistence. And I do want to recognize Vice Mayor Griffin. And I believe it was in the office with these white doors where we first met well before you were on the commission. And you brought this, something you've been working on for quite some time. Your draft of an ordinance that you desired to be passed to the city of Kalamazoo. And we went through some of that and you left me your body of work. And, here we are now sometime later, getting to this point. I guess it, for better or for worse, it speaks to the fact that for things to occur, there must be hard work and there must be persistence and there must be integrity and attention to detail. So I recognize you for all those things. And it was interesting to me after we had our meeting, what seems like so long ago now, that 22 years ago, a little over that, I had a similar kind of idea about something I thought we really needed in Kalamazoo County. And that was a public housing commission. And I worked for 2 long, arduous years. And I don't know if you experienced the same thing, Vice Mayor Griffin, but sometimes feeling like it was never going to happen. It was not going to be successful. Asking that the county commission create a public housing commission in Kalamazoo County. And although it had very modest beginnings, and our very, very first source of funding was a spaghetti dinner that we held in the basement of the North Presbyterian Church, which I think raised about $352 for the Public Housing Commission. We have gone on since then to raise millions of dollars of funding to create affordable housing, and sponsored a millage locally, which was nationally groundbreaking to support folks, and are actually in the process right now. We have another millage proposal from the Housing Commission on the ballot in November, and I'll talk about that more as we get closer. But it reminds me that you have to be a person, if you're going to do this kind of work, that is an optimist in spite of everything. And so I see that way, and I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit more later. But I just want to recognize you. I appreciate that. I know that the hard work and the effort you put into this. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Praedel.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Vice Mayor, would you like to say thank you? The motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right. We are now to item H2, City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 18A, Fair Housing.
And I presume we had any report. So, Commissioners, the recommended action is to a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Knott, supported by Commissioner Hess. We also then have a motion that we need to make to amend this ordinance as well, correct?
Yes, Mayor, and I will try to help you through that. The motion should be to amend section 18A-4, which addresses rental housing prohibition on criminal record inquiries, subsection E. And in going through this earlier, I found another change that has to be made to that, so bear with me. The motion would be to amend subsection E to strike the word held before the word housing that appears in the second line. That's just a stray word. I don't know how it got in there, but strike the word held and replace the word required with the word permitted. So therefore, the section would read, it shall be unlawful for any landlord to engage in a communication, including the production or dissemination of advertisements related to, the word held would be struck, housing that expresses, comma, directly or indirectly, that any person with an arrest record or conviction record will not be considered for rental or lease of real property, or may not apply for rental or lease of real property, except as, strike the word required and insert permitted by local, state, or federal law. For purposes of this section, engage in a communication includes, but is not limited to, making a verbal statement or producing or disseminating any solicitation, advertisement, or signage.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. I will not require that you repeat that entire motion if you want to make it, Commissioner. So who would like to make the motion to amend the ordinance?
So moved.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Knott, supported by Commissioner Urban. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The amendment to the motion passes. Now we are back to the motion itself. That motion has already been made. Is there further discussion on this portion of the work we're doing tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I think this is academic, but I would be remiss if I did not call out the fact that these two ordinances are tie-barred. In order for either one to become effective, they both have to be passed.
Appreciate that. Any discussion, Commissioners? See no discussion. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next item is H3, City Manager Ritzma.
Mayor Anderson, before we move on, do you mind if I make a comment to that? I just wanted to wait for it to pass first.
Okay. I do not mind. Please go ahead,
Well,
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I promise I won't take all day. But I'm a ball of emotions right now. I'm not even going to lie. This has been many, many years in the making, and I'm just so thankful and so grateful to everyone who was supportive, to my fellow commissioners. Yeah, wow. I want to say a couple things first. For anybody watching, for community, this journey started almost 4 years ago, well before I was anywhere close to being on the commission and not even having any thoughts of that or being vice mayor. To have community support, believe in, and foster the work that it took to get to this point is something that I don't even know how to describe. People like Kevin Ford, when I was sitting on Shared Prosperity Kalamazoo and took that brief and gave it to Isaac, and allowed for that relationship to happen. Dr. Charlay and Shalana Lewis with TRHT and Isaac and everyone that was a part of this work, this would not have happened without you and everyone that supported. People like Elisa Parker and Lionel Legrone, again, who believed in me when I didn't have anything to go with and helped to support this work. I definitely want to thank organizations, Michigan United, NAACP, Kalamazoo branch, the Vine Neighborhood Association, the Continuum of Care, the Greater Kalamazoo Renters Union, and to the many, many contributors from community to the housing providers and everyone in between who added to this work. to city staff, to DCM Lamb. I know she's not on right now, but hopefully she's watching. Director Kick, who were there in the very, very early stages as well. I want to really send a big thank you to former Mayor Bobby Hopewell and former Commissioner Don Cooney, who were very supportive. To you, City Manager Ritzema, who I had a chance to talk about this with well before this, who was supportive. I want to thank you very much. Director Kick, thank you for all of your work, for your steadfast belief in this work. When you start talking about equity, it sounds really good. When you start moving into the work that brings changes, that's when it gets hard. So yes, Mayor Anderson, it was very, very difficult to have to navigate through this at times when I didn't even know if it was going to go or what I was doing. But just to have the support of community and the support of folks like the Isaac Housing Task Force, led by Stephanie Hoffman and Toby Hannah Davies, and everyone, even though it started there, the whole Isaac family and the Kalamazoo Community Foundation family, and no one is being thanked in order or out of order, because right now my mind is still blown. So I have to thank my family, because if we didn't suffer through what we suffered through, I don't know that we would have had the catalyst to get here. So I have to say thank you to my family who helped support this journey and put up with my hours and hours of ridiculous research, or I guess I can't call it ridiculous because it helped us to get to this point. But I'm just really, truly honored. You know, we worked through the doubts, the disrespect, and the discredit, and we're able to just move power. And again, I just want everyone to know how important your voice is. You don't have to have a title to make an impact. You don't have to have any of those things to make a change. You just have to have a belief. And hopefully what has happened here in the city of Kalamazoo moves other municipalities and other communities to begin to have equitable housing. Because when you cross the street, you can be in the township, you can be in another city, so on and so forth. But we need everyone to have equitable access. And so, thank you.
Thank you for making sure I gave you time for that, Vice Mayor. And it is a sign of character when someone's being recognized and they want to take some time to make sure that they share that recognition with the community that made it possible. So thank you for that. Manager Ritzma, item H3.
Adoption of an ordinance amending the Kalamazoo City Code, Chapter 2, Article 10, Employee Retirement System, Sections 2-24, 2-232, and 2-237.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Made by Commissioner Knott, supported by Commissioner Hess. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Sorry, yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. All right, so on this agenda, there is now an opportunity for general public comments that comes at this point in the agenda. So I would like to ask Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain if he has a sense of how many comments are lined up and how long that might be.
Yes, sir, we do. Let me just check on that. We have a little over 20 calls, and they probably last anywhere from about 35 to 40 minutes in length combined.
Okay. So I was going to recommend if we're looking at facing hours of comments that we might recess and get a chance to listen to those with totally fresh faces. But since it's that length of comments, I presume everyone is comfortable now that I see it's 9:20 with moving ahead with that. However, I'm going to take a bio break. Can people live with us giving a 5-minute bio break and then we'll jump into those comments? Is that okay? All right. I see. Looks like people are coming back here. So Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir. We'll begin playing the general comments that we've received, and yes, we will begin.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. This is a general comment, and it relates to the events of August 15th, Saturday, August 15th, on Water Street and at the Arcadia Park. My name is Vincent Schumacher. I am not a resident of Kalamazoo. I'm a resident of Kentwood, Michigan, a suburb of Grand Rapids. I was present on the afternoon of August 15th. I was not able to discern exactly how all of the violence and ruckus started somewhat after 1:30 p.m. that afternoon, but I did observe a couple of things that I thought I should bring to the attention of the Commission. The most obvious one was that although there had been some uniformed police presence in the park as early as 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock that morning and early afternoon, there was no visible uniformed police presence in the park or along Water Street when the Proud Boys approached there from the west. They came toward the park. They paraded eastward along Water Street. There was considerable tussle and a certain amount of flailing about with flags and other things, including at least one sign that apparently had been uprooted. It was only after the Proud Boys had disappeared around the corner heading south on Edwards Street that I observed any presence of police officers. I got back into Water Street again and stood on one of the berms just south of the little bridge, and I made a videotape that runs about 3.5 minutes that shows the presence of some officers at the west end of Water Street within view, and a whole troop of officers in their battle uniforms coming south through the park and taking up positions. At one point, I encourage you to review the video if I can get it downloaded through your office and Mr. Chamberlain. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening. I'm Rabbi Simone Schicker from Temple B'nai Israel, which is located in the city limits of Kalamazoo. I also live within the city limits of Kalamazoo. As a member of a religious minority, I've become accustomed to having to explain my religious practices to others. I have become accustomed to the surprise that a woman can be a member of the clergy in Judaism, but I will never become accustomed to what I refuse to become accustomed to, is fear for my life because of my faith. And yet I was scared when I learned that the Proud Boys were coming to town, because I know exactly what they think of me and my congregation. I'm greatly distressed by the accounts I have read, seen, and heard of the demonstration by the Proud Boys in Kalamazoo. Our city officials and police department knew they were coming and knew what they stand for. I'm horrified by the lack of intervention by the police in regards to the Proud Boys, a known hate group. Peaceful protests in the city have been dispersed in horrible ways. But when a known hate group comes to town and actively incites violence, they are allowed to continue without punishment. That is wrong. Our leadership needs to do better. Thank you.
My name is Josh Mayer, and I am a former longtime resident of Portage and current doctoral candidate in anthropology at UCLA, where one of my colleagues, Jeffrey Brantingham, developed a predictive policing tool known as PredPol that is currently used in Portage. As has been recognized by hundreds of top social scientists and mathematicians, PredPol claims to provide race-neutral predictions of where crimes will occur, while in fact reinforcing white supremacist policing practices. It has also been found to be ineffective at achieving any reduction in crime by departments that have used it, including the LA Police Department, which dropped its contract with PredPol this April. I have a comment and several questions based on documents I received in response to a recent records request. At the June 3, 2019 City Commission meeting, a resident asked whether the new Kalamazoo Strategic Operations Center, or KSOC, would be using predictive policing technology. Chief Thomas replied, quote, "We right now have no plan to use predictive analytics. We haven't demoed any, chosen any, selected that, because that's not what we're trying to do here," unquote. Yet at that very time, Portage, a participant in KSOC, was already in final negotiations with PredPol and signed a contract 2 days later. Further, an agreement under which Portage would pay Kalamazoo for the services of an analyst at KSOC, who would presumably be using PredPol software, was approved at that City Commission meeting. According to an April 2019 memo regarding the proposed agreement, the purpose was specifically to provide for predictive policing. Email records show that Chief Thomas had advanced warning of the residents' questions and immediately forwarded them to the director of Portage Public Safety, and then spoke with the director on the phone regarding the questions, even though the questions never mentioned Portage. It's also strange that Chief Thomas would indicate that the center had no plan to use predictive analytics, since Kalamazoo Public Safety had reached out to PredPol about contracting with them for KSOC as early as August 2018, 11 months before Chief Thomas's comments. Then, in September 2019, 3 months after Chief Thomas's comments, KDPS Assistant Chief Andrew Weir arranged a PredPol demo with his staff and staff from other agencies participating in KSOC. So my questions are, first, how does Chief Thomas explain having misled the City Commission and the public in her June 3rd, 2019 comments by stating that there was no intention to deploy predictive policing at KSOC? Second, noting that PredPol reached out to KDPS as recently as April of this year, has KDPS now definitively ruled out the use of predictive policing software from PredPol and any other company, such as Street Smart, Central Square, Motorola, or Palantir, whether for the exclusive use of KDPS or for use at KSOC? Third, did Mr. Ritzma, Mayor Anderson, or any other members of the City Commission know that Chief Thomas was not being straightforward with them on June 3rd? And if not, did they discover the fact between now and then? Fourth, how can Chief Thomas possibly hold the confidence of Mayor Anderson, Mr. Ritzma, and the full City Commission, given that she has misled them and the public on this issue? Thank you.
This is Toby Hannah Davies. I live in the city, and I'm calling as an individual. I was at the prayer vigil at the Arcadia Festival site when the Proud Boys came marching down Water Street displaying their racism and fascism. I witnessed a number of things the police should have handled much better. I also witnessed things that our side, the counter-protesters, could have handled much better. The prayer vigil included 2 groups of 5 or 6 counter-protesters each, standing at the gates of the festival site, carrying long guns, maybe even assault rifles. The prayer vigil also included a number of counter-protesters carrying big sticks or poles. As soon as the Proud Boys stopped in front of the festival site, numerous people from the prayer vigil surged across the bridge over Arcadia Creek and onto Water Street to confront the Proud Boys. It seemed to me that they had come to fight the Proud Boys with their sticks and fists. After that first round of fighting, I was right next to the female friend of one of the fighters who came back into the festival site to be with her. He had blood running down his bare chest, and he was carrying a big pole. When more fighting broke out, he ran right back to join the fight, though his female friend was screaming at him not to go. He was the first person arrested by the police. I immediately felt that it was a big mistake for the police to arrest a person of color before arresting Proud Boys. But the arrestee was bloodied, carrying a big pole, and running into the fight. I think we, the counter-protesters, helped put the police in a no-win situation. It's important not to do either-or thinking here. Either-or thinking does not acknowledge the complexities. We can do better than that. We can be honest about our part as counter-protesters and about the complexities we helped create. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sharday Chambers, and I am a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. And I'm calling with another comment to speak on our public safety and to also speak on the chief of police. I'm just hugely disappointed in the services with our public safety under our chief of police. I believe that Ms. Thomas needs to do a better job. And if she can't do a better job, maybe step down. The actions that happened with the Proud Boys was terrible. And the residents of Kalamazoo, we have not forgotten. We have not forgotten. And just because there might be a little silence at this moment, we have not forgotten. And our public safety needs to do better. The leadership needs to do better and needs to be held accountable. You need to apologize for the missteps and the mishandling of the situations that you did, and we need to do better. We need to do better because what we're doing now is unacceptable. And if worse comes to Kalamazoo, I have no respect for our officers. I feel like they will fail us and they will cause our city to fail. I feel like our public safety is not at a good place right now. And it starts at top with leadership. And the leadership needs to do better. You need to work on race and equality and equity. You need to work on better training. You need to work on how to deal better with the public. And you need to serve better. If you want a better connection with the public, you guys need to do better. And I'm just totally disappointed. And I know you guys have a lot of things on the agenda tonight, but I'm just going to leave you with this as well. And I hope that we can make this better and that we don't forget that our public safety still needs work in the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you. Bye.
My name is Bailey, and I'm a resident in Kalamazoo. I have several things I wanted to comment on. I want to start by voicing my support in the housing ordinance. We have a housing problem in Kalamazoo, and we need solutions that support equity. I see this as one solution to begin fixing that problem. Please vote yes for this. I also wanted to state that I am fully against Chief Thomas's recently proposed media credentialing process. After Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety's abysmal handling of the Proud Boys visit, Chief Thomas apologized for their arrest of InLive reporter Sam Robison. However, this credentialing process puts the blame on the media rather than on the police. Despite Robison stating he was pressed multiple times as well as having visible credentials, he was arrested and detained for hours. And now they are saying that the media needs to go through a credentialing process so the police can better identify them? No, this is unacceptable. Our citizens, media, legal defenders should not have to jump through hoops in order for police officers to do their jobs. That is not how it works. Chief Thomas has also come out with a report blaming the whole incident on the counter-protesters. No blame being placed on the hate group that invaded our city or any responsibility taken from the police who failed to protect members of our community. The media doesn't need a credentialing process. KDPS needs to take responsibility, make some changes, starting with the resignation of Chief Thomas. My final comment is in the interest of public safety. I wanted to file a complaint regarding police officers not wearing masks when they are approaching citizens. I've witnessed this personally, and I've seen and heard multiple complaints about it as well. Officers should be held to the same requirements as any other worker in our community right now.
They should not be approaching a person's car without a mask on, period. You don't get to exercise your political beliefs while you are working your job. This applies to Chief Thomas as well, who has also been seen in public places without a mask. We are still in the middle of a pandemic, and police officers are not exempt from that. This is a public safety concern, and Mayor Anderson, I fully expect you to address this matter. Thank you for your time.
Yes, this is Joe Byers. I live in the Vine neighborhood. I am deeply disappointed with the subcommittee's finding and recommendations regarding the protest. I was very hopeful when the subcommittee was formed with who I thought were our most progressive commissioners. The recommendations that were explained by the city manager and mayor are complete garbage. When I listened to the last meeting and public comments, I was hopeful the commission would sincerely listen to the community and their concerns. 24 hours later, when the meeting resumed, I realized you all had not heard what the community was saying. With the newly released public safety report and the city manager's press conference, it is obvious that neither Mr. Ritzema or Chief Thomas are willing to see the continued harm they are doing to this community. There is zero trust with public safety. They have shown time and again, they are not willing to protect us or provide safe spaces for this community to exercise the rights given to us in the Constitution. They have sided with neo-Nazi fascists, and it is extremely disturbing. Just as I did during my last public comment, I'm calling for City Manager Ritzema, Chief Thomas, and Mayor Anderson to resign. They are unable to lead during this moment and should step aside for true leadership who can help heal this community. I'm also calling on the rest of the commissioners to do the jobs you are elected to do and represent the people of this community. Enough is enough.
Hi, my name is Erin Bensinger. I live within the city limits. I am calling to address the Kalamazoo Defender and Michigan National Lawyers Guild statement about the protest and arrest on August 15th, 2020. I'm sure that you all have read it by now, but I would like to reiterate part of it for you. So according to the Kalamazoo Defenders, legal observers, the issues raised by this event, which should bring about an investigation by the City Commission, are: the Proud Boys should not have been allowed by the city police to march without a permit towards Arcadia Park. The Proud Boys should not have been allowed to march to the vicinity of the park and confront the counter-protesters. The Kalamazoo police should have protected the counter-protesters in the park from being confronted by the Proud Boys. Once the Proud Boys left, there was no reason to order the permitted counter-protesters to disperse from the park. Any Proud Boys vehicles traveling without license plates should have been stopped and investigated, and the reasons for the arrest of the 9 people should be reviewed. Clearly, the legal observer and the reporter should not have been arrested. According to the Kalamazoo Defender, the above issues will be addressed at the meeting tonight. I am looking forward to hearing your responses to those. I really encourage you to include with your responses not only thorough apologies, but action up to and including forcing Chief Carrie Ann Thomas to resign. Because really this all rests on her. And I feel much less safe in the city knowing that somebody who permitted that violence to happen to people who live here, including a journalist and a legal observer, is in charge of the police. I feel a lot less safe for knowing that. And I really hope that you all are seriously considering removing her from her position for just these egregious violations that have happened. Thanks.
My name is Santiago, and I live in the city. The city manager sent out an undated letter with news about a review the city is conducting into how the bureaucrats and the police mismanaged the events of the 15th of August this year and the improvements proposed. I was not able to find in the report the bibliography of scientific journal articles which supported their conduct or the proposed changes. Neither could I find newspaper articles about how such events involving white supremacist militias in the process of becoming racial minorities and permanently unemployed were treated in other countries more successfully and the extracted lessons as these protests increase in frequency and intensity, together with a worsening economic depression. The other part not mentioned in Ritzima's letter about the review underway was an explanation for the marked difference between the way the police treated the June 1 and June 2 protesters and the August 15 protesters. That breach could not get addressed by training or information distribution. There is, on the other hand, a section about accountability mentioned, but it lacks penalties and punishment for the evident incompetence clearly displayed up and down the chain of command among bureaucrats and officers who are, for the most part, as much outsiders as the white supremacist militia, which was here 3 weeks ago. Thank you and have a good day.
Hi, my name is Kaylin, and I am a resident of the Vine neighborhood. I just want to express my continued rage and disappointment in this city, and particularly in the police department, namely Chief Carrie Ann Thomas. The lack of responsibility, of humanity, of understanding, and frankly, of any action at all, given the events, not just by the Proud Boys visit, but also continue violations against the members of this community, is abhorrent, and I think she needs to resign immediately. I want to see action taken by my city government in order to protect its citizens. This needs to stop, and we cannot continue to uplift the voices of Nazis in our community. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Stephen Tavares, resident of Kalamazoo in the Vine neighborhood on South Westnedge. And I'm calling today just a general comment about the little video I saw today on the news and on Facebook with the police, again, discussing, which is my view, an inept attempt to, again, make the citizens of Kalamazoo responsible for the lack of protection by the city police department. You know, the tactics were entirely different when peaceful protesters from Kalamazoo wanted to have a demonstration in June. You brought in outside help from the state, National Guard, on tips from people supposedly that gave good information. Come August, you have information saying the Proud Boys are coming, but yet you had no extra help. I don't understand how you cannot see the difference and the bias that's there and how this was handled. I'm appalled. I'm sickened. I moved to this area 15 years ago, and what I've seen here goes against the grain of the city of Kalamazoo I used to visit as a child. The disregard for the public citizens, the protection of valued businesses downtown, and yet we have some interlopers who telegraphed what they were going to come for, and there was no protection. And then afterwards, you again arrest citizens of this town. Sorry, but the police chief needs to go, the city manager needs to go, and the city council needs to step up and take greater responsibility instead of a passive stance of letting city administration do your jobs. You are elected to oversee the administration and point the direction in which the city needs to follow. And the administration definitely is not doing it. Thank you.
My name is Sarah Ruggles, and I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. And this comment is in relation to the repeated use of tear gas and other chemical weapons recently by Kalamazoo police officers. Mayor Anderson, in response to a wave of calls to dismiss Chief Thomas, Manager Ritzema, and yourself following the repeated failures of KDPS to treat citizens of our town appropriately and humanely, you said that, quote, change should not be the go-to, that we just need to support each other better. But when the chief of police herself repeatedly insists that her officers, quote, had to tear gas citizens, then you might consider the validity in a vote of no confidence in the officials who uphold and unapologetically perpetuate such morally reprehensible and absolutely indefensible treatment of our own people. Chemical weapons are a violation of international law. Why are we taking it for granted that they are okay to use against our own citizens?
Hi, this is Jessica Swartz. I am a Kalamazoo citizen, and I'm just calling in to say that I look forward to seeing the resolution that Commissioner Pradel and Clerk Borling have been working on with regard to voting access on the September 22nd agenda, and for looking forward to working with the clerk's office to get it implemented. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Victoria, and I am a resident of Kalamazoo. I'm calling to once again express my disappointment and disgust with the large majority of leadership in this city. Chief Thomas, you continue to lie and deflect. Your police force's report about counter-protesters on the 15th was absolutely despicable. Your attempt to control the way media reports on your officers' actions is literal fascism, and you still haven't apologized for tear-gassing our young people in June. Ritzma, your willful ignorance continues to traumatize our city. To me, it looks less like willful ignorance and more like a conscious choice to side with fascism. And Anderson, squirting out tears every once in a while is not going to distract us from the fact that you continually choose to protect hate speech under the guise of the First Amendment over the people of this city. All three of you need to resign.
My name is Inika Way. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I am making my comments in regard to the incidents that occurred around the Proud Boys time in Kalamazoo, and I am wanting to make suggestions to the City Commission and the police in planning for safe events in the future. My first recommendation is to require a permit so that when a group such as Proud Boys is making a plan to be present, that they need to go through a process of acquiring a permit. My second recommendation is that the City of Kalamazoo pass a regulation that states that no weapons may be brought to protests or demonstrations. My third recommendation is that the police consider their presence as peacekeepers to protect nonviolent protest and to stand in support of nonviolent protesters. And my fourth recommendation is to look at prevention, not just intervention, so that we can plan for the safe expression of First Amendment rights. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amber Adams Fall. I am a resident of Parchment, a former resident of Kalamazoo, and both my husband and I work in Kalamazoo. I'm calling because I have been emailing each and every one of you repeatedly for 3 weeks, beginning on August 19th. While there are plenty of issues I would like to discuss with you, currently my largest concern is that in your August 17th meeting, which I watched live and have rewatched parts of several times, Commissioner Aaron Knott made substantially false and inflammatory statements about one of your constituents, Reverend Nathan Dannison. To be specific, Commissioner Knott claimed that Mr. Dannison had contacted and requested the presence of armed PDL protesters at his peaceful vigil in Arcadia Creek Park during the organized, unpermitted Proud Boys rally. There is not only no proof that Mr. Dannison made that call, but it is also quite easy to find significant proof of who did. though I will not name those people here as it is not my job to get your facts straight for you. Ms. Knott also referred to Mr. Dannison as a race baiter and laid blame on him for a significant portion of the city's own failings during the course of that day. These public lies have damaged the personal and professional reputation of Mr. Dannison and directly endangered himself, his wife, and his children. This is not an exaggeration. For an elected official to lie publicly in this manner is an absolutely abhorrent abuse of power, and I cannot accept it. The fact that I have spent weeks messaging each of you individually and collectively and have received only 3 responses, 2 of which gave me no indication that my messages had even been read, is also not acceptable to me. I am asking now, and will continue to ask if I must, for Commissioner Aaron Knott, as well as the City Commission as a whole, to issue an immediate and public apology to Mr. Dannison and his family for any harm and endangerment that were incurred as a direct result of your slander and misinformation. I am deeply, deeply ashamed of both your actions and inactions in this regard and expect better from you now and in the future. While I would love to stop spending any more of your or my time on this, I will continue to reach out until an apology has been made. Please do so as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
Hi, this is Brandy Crawford Johnson, taxpaying resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling to notify the commissioners and the mayor, if they do not already know, that there is a class action lawsuit against Graphic Packaging International for the odor nuisance. And I would like to suggest that the code enforcement would be enforcing this odor and these chemicals and fallout from coming into our land, because there is a general nuisance clause, and it does say that they are not allowed to release hazardous chemicals and odors above what the state allows, and they are doing that. So I would really appreciate if you could send your code enforcement officer out there to help the residents of Kalamazoo with this issue until we do go to court, and hopefully a judge will stop this odor nuisance from happening and interfering with our health and our properties. Thank you.
My name is Stephanie Bagnell, and I live in the Vine neighborhood. I was just calling because I still don't see that the city has taken much accountability in the handling of the Proud Boys rally here in town. The arresting of the MLive reporter and the legal observers was just so heartbreaking and disappointing to see from our city officials. And I wholeheartedly believe that Chief Thompson needs to resign and that Jim Ritzma does not deserve his job either. I think we need a serious change in Kalamazoo. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike Barker, and I do not live within the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling to comment on the abject failure of the city manager and the police department on August 15th with the Proud Boys rally again. I've read the statement that was produced by the subcommittee, and I'm appalled. The proposed credentialing system will not fix the problems. The overly aggressive behavior of a militarized police department is the problem, and non-discriminately arresting Kalamazoo citizens who were standing against the Nazis in a militarized sweep after the protest was over. That's a problem. To say that this whole debacle was a result of the police not being able to tell who the press people were is a ridiculous evasion of responsibility. We demand that Carrie Ann Thomas admit this failure and don't try to hide behind some crazy credentialing system as if that was the problem. That was not the problem. I myself heard the MLive reporter repeatedly call out that he was a reporter showing the credentials. He was completely ignored by these military police officers. And I guess I want to go on further to say this, Jim Ritzma's planning with this is another abject failure. prior to this, in the prior meeting, he was talking about intelligence gathering was done weeks prior to the event. Well, what happened? Anyone with access to Wikipedia or who hasn't been living under a rock for the past 4 years could tell you what would happen. And it's been said when the KKK invaded Kalamazoo in 1998, an 8-foot-high chain-link fence was put up. That was some planning. They separated the KKK and the violent invaders from the population of the city. We expected the police to do the same, especially with advanced planning. And Ritzma says, yeah, we're going to change the city's permit process or ordinances that would legally deter groups like Proud Boys from selecting the city. Well, give me a break. There's already a use, chose not to enforce them.
The first duty of every officer is to the truth. If you can't find it within yourself to stand up and tell the truth about what happened, you don't deserve to wear that uniform. I'm going to make this simple for you. Either you come forward and tell them what really took place, or I will.
My name is Zachary Lassiter. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I have a couple things I want to touch on tonight. At first, I want to share that I'm rather disappointed in public safety's plan to credential and train the media because of the arrest of a person that was in the media that was properly credentialed already, wearing those credentials, and you arrested him basically for being a black person doing this job. It sounds to me like the officers need better training, and that's just disappointing. The second thing I want to touch on is I have paid now for a FOIA request for all the body camera video of the protests that happened in, I believe it was June or July, and you wanted $1,800 with around a $900 deposit. I have paid that. The city has yet to acknowledge that payment, and when contacting the Office of Professional Standards with a complaint, the Office of Professional Standards has not yet returned my call. So who am I to contact regarding the Office of Professional Standards not investigating a complaint regarding me paying public safety for video that they are required to hand out? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shona Espinoza, and I live in Kalamazoo City. I am very disappointed on the way things have been handled with the police. I believe that the chief should be fired. Jim Ritzema, you should be gone because you don't do your job at all. David Anderson, you just need to step down and let Patrice Griffin take over being mayor because you three have no idea how to represent Kalamazoo or anything that has to do with our black and brown community. So I really think that you guys should take in consideration of stepping down and let somebody else do the job that you guys aren't doing. I'm very disappointed in what happened and what has continued to happen. You guys aren't even addressing the killings that have been happening. So I don't know what you guys are thinking, but you guys need to get it together, do better, step down, because you guys are not doing your job at all. You need to be held accountable for the poor leadership that you're doing.
Hey, this is Jacob Johnson again. Just calling to follow up as there's the public comments going on in regards to KDPS, the treatment of protesters, and specifically the white supremacist terrorist group that was allowed to roam freely in our community. And I just wanted to highlight another part of my comment that I believe got cut off at a prior city commission meeting in terms of what it looked like. Real quick, what it looked like is that the city of Kalamazoo and public safety allowed these white supremacist groups to come through our city and incite violence while chanting Trump 2020, holding American flag, taunting white power hand symbols, and also chanting Blue Lives Matter. So I repeat that again. White supremacist terrorists were walking through Kalamazoo, flaunting white power symbols, inciting violence, holding American flags and Trump 2020 flag, and talking about Blue Lives Matter. So I again just want to state the contradictions in all of that, but also the state of America and the state of Kalamazoo within that too. That the state of America and the state of Kalamazoo is so entrenched and so tied to white supremacy that we should not be surprised by the racial disparities we see. And we should not be surprised that we do not get protection from the state, especially when these white supremacist terrorists who are coming through our community are literally siding with the state in terms of the police. So I just wanted to acknowledge that fact and what that looks like. And again, ask the question, what side will we be on in terms of racial justice and equity? What side will Kalamazoo city leadership be on? And how can we be better at holding each other accountable? Because this is unacceptable. The racial disparities, the lack of quote-unquote serving and protecting. We talk about tear gassing of peaceful protesters. We need to take a hard look at ourselves. Black Lives Matter.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last public comment received.
Thanks for your great work, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. I appreciate that very much. Next are reports and legislation. City Manager Ritzman, do you have a report?
Yeah, just a quick update on the overall action plan. There are several items that are in progress. We are releasing the RFP for an independent investigator for the May, June events and also the August 15th event. So that'll be going out next week. We are in the midst of hiring a public information officer, so that we hope to have that completed here in the very near future. And work continues on how we go out and actually engage with the community. There are several options and ideas that are being talked about, and as soon as we land on some, I will be sure to inform everyone at the commission meeting. That includes CSPRAB's involvement, and they are also going to be involved in how that looks. So that's what I have this evening as far as an update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manager Ritzman. I appreciate your good work very much. I also want to thank everyone that called in for the general comments and all the comment periods this evening. This is what democracy looks like. I appreciate everyone who took their time and attention to do that. Next, we will hear from commissioners who wish to make any comments this evening. Commissioner Urban. Oh, Commissioner Cunningham is not here this evening. Commissioner Knott?
Sure, just briefly, I didn't have an opportunity earlier, but to Vice Mayor Griffin, I just want to say congratulations for your dedication, your commitment, and hard work. It paid off tonight, and you deserve to celebrate the fact that all those blood, sweat, and tears, it's going to impact so many lives here in Kalamazoo. So congratulations to you. It's a good night for you and the coalition that you built.
Thank you, Commissioner Knott. Commissioner Pradel.
Just wanted to echo that again to congratulate Vice Mayor. Congratulations. Well deserved tonight. Just take a deep breath and I guess just kind of take an opportunity to let soak in all your hard work here from the last 2 to 4 years, and it's coming to fruition tonight. So congratulations. Also, just wanted to take a pause and just thank city staff. There are 600 plus people who really work for this city and on behalf of the city. And whether it be street sweeping to clean out debris from our drains, or the people who are working hard around the clock and on holidays to keep our water clean and sewer going, to the people who are going into homes during a pandemic to serve the public as public safety officers. There's a lot of people who are working really hard during very complicated times, and doing a lot of work on our behalf. And so we don't get a chance to say that enough, but I just want to take an opportunity to thank all 600 plus people who are working hard on our behalf.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes, again, I just want to thank everyone who had a part in passing of this ordinance. I want to especially thank my husband at Genesis. I didn't mention that earlier, but he's an activist, he's an artist, and he does a lot of work in the community. And prior to the housing going down that path, I was very just supportive in his work. It wasn't until our personal housing crisis and learning a few things that ignited my own personal passion. And so I just really want to lift him up and thank him for the endless amount of support and the endless amount of encouragement and everything that it takes, and the partner that I had to get this work done. So I definitely want to lift him up and thank him for that. And again, I said my family earlier, but specifically my children, the younger two, Genesis and Ryder, who were in the house at the time all this was happening. So thank you again for that support. I want to lift up Director Baker. I know that there have been some conversations and some things that have happened with respects to traffic on the north side, and they have been swift with their response to community and open to the suggestions and the feedback from community. So I just want to lift up Director Baker and thank him for that, and look forward to the continued work that'll take place around traffic and various issues that, again, it's not specific to one side of town, but just wanted to lift that up. I wanted to, let me see, just to address or to just share some of the thoughts as far as credentialing as it relates to our media partners. One of the things, and I've shared this with staff, but I just want to make sure I share this out with community as well. It was very important. I felt for accountability to be a real live action word. And so when Chief Thomas boldly apologized for the arrest of the media, I didn't have any information ahead of time. I just started with that. And so it was really important to me to get clarity around why that arrest happened. And so that moving forward as a community, we could address directly the issue. And so I felt that we had missed that opportunity to kind of directly speak to that. And hopefully in the future that, and I didn't watch the press conference earlier, so it could have been addressed there, but hopefully that clarity happens so that real accountability can take place, so that we can continue to move forward with what needs to happen in order for community to have trust, and for those who have trust to continue to build on the trust with Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. And with respects to the specific person who's asking about apologies, I did receive your email. I read it and I responded. I was not party to the conversation that took place with Pastor Dennison. So I don't really have a whole lot to say about specifics because I wasn't there. I believe I've addressed previously that I feel like the response to or the preparation for the most recent Proud Boys event should not have relied on what happened in June, because they were two different types of events. And if anything, to be informed by a community member is okay, but to build your response on a community member, I don't necessarily agree with that. But, again, I don't have anything to say because I wasn't a part of that conversation. So I just wanted to say that. and anyone who has spoken to that, perhaps they were part of that and felt like they needed to say what they needed to say. And so that's not for me to speak against that, as again, I wasn't there. So I just wanted to say that as well. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your heartfelt comments, Vice Mayor Griffin. Commissioner Hess, did I miss you?
Yeah, and that's okay. I really wanted to lift up the Vice Mayor. I wanted to tell her this. Calvin Coolidge, nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. Calvin Coolidge. And as a coach, I would say that to my players, and I believe it deeply. And I saw it happen in this process. And because it happened in this process, which has been very difficult, a long road, so many meetings, so many people working with others, listening to others, and yet it's still not perfect. But I look forward to the unfolding of this ordinance as it bends the arc of justice, right here in Kalamazoo, and we can definitely be a leader here. So that said, as we bend the arc of justice, everyone, please make plans to vote. I would like to personally thank Clerk Borling and his office for their tireless work in getting poll workers prepared and trained. And I don't know if you need more poll workers, but I don't think I'm doing anything that day, so please let me know. So thank you so much, and to Rebecca Kick and Dorla Bonner and Clyde Robinson, who did so much work with it, getting this ordinance to the place where it's going to be so impactful. Thank you so much. And Patrice, again, congratulations on your hard work.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. I appreciate it. Jack, I gave you your shot, my friend. So, can't hear you.
There we go.
Okay, Jack.
That's my bad. I wanted to add something that hasn't been touched on just yet. I got a chance to visit with the people over at the wastewater treatment plant last week. Director Baker invited me to on a meeting that he was having with the folks from Graphics Packaging, and I learned there that there's some plans being made to deal directly with Kalamazoo's involvement in the odor problem that comes from graphics packaging. Basically, to keep briefly, what's involved is there's a drop of sewage going into an underground pipe that's oversized, that creates a lot of splashing and droplet formation and a lot of volatilization of odors. There's a plan afoot to reroute the piping and to ventilate that piping so that the odors will be captured. It seems like a very sound plan that their engineers have put together through a consulting firm. And I think it would be good if Director Baker was invited to address us as a commission sometime soon on those plans and how far along they are. I was very impressed with the quality of interaction between Graphics Packaging and Kalamazoo. They both recognize that the problem with the odors is confounded, and they're working together to address it. So The problem's not fixed yet, but I think it's in good hands, and I'm looking forward to vast improvement. Also, we have the state who's pretty much on the top of the situation and is going to keep graphic packaging in line, and the graphic packaging knows what they have to do. So that's all good. That's basically good news. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up briefly is, although we're very, very happy that this housing ordinance 18A and 18 passed this evening, and congratulations that have been extended are all well deserved. But the work of implementing this thing is yet to begin. We're going to have about 3 months or so of getting ready, picking the people who are going to be on the Civil Rights Board, doing the trainings, working out some of the details of how this is actually going to be implemented. Frankly, I think the landlords have some bad experiences that they are projecting onto the future, which may not be, I can't deny their experiences, but I can question their projection of those experiences into the future. So time will tell on that. Whatever is majorly wrong with this new ordinance, we are prepared to learn and adjust. So fear not about that. We have to think that really what we're trying to do here is on the side of human rights and the UN Declaration on Human Rights, which had to do with a right to housing, safe housing. So whatever is needed to be done, we're going to do. And I'm not going to be deterred by the fears of the landlords. And I think there's many other people who share my view on that. And I'm glad they were all here tonight, either in person or on the telephone to voice that. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. I appreciate having the chemist on the commission, spending time over at the wastewater treatment plant. That's very helpful. Just a few things I wanted to say this evening, then just to close this out, and that is this, that, a subtle change happens when a resident of a community decides to put their hand up and run for public office. And that is that you may have spent time in the community working as an advocate or a volunteer, but you find that when you ask for the opportunity to serve, really as a volunteer, because all of us really get a stipend, not a wage, to do this work. When you ask to serve as a volunteer, you are stepping into what is a sacred trust. And that is the responsibility for managing what in essence is in excess of $200 million of public spending here in Kalamazoo in order to do the work of creating a safe and equitable place for everyone that lives in Kalamazoo. And those are not easy things to do. We often find that we don't have enough money to do the work we want to do. We often find that we have challenges on policies, or we have challenges on execution. And I can also tell you with an absolute guarantee that there is going to be no single decision you make in public office in which everyone is going to be 100% in support of that. And when you volunteer and raise your hand to do this work, you, in essence, are creating critics as well. So thank you to this team that I'm working with. I appreciate you very much. It's not an easy thing to do. More so, though, just along those lines tonight, I want to talk about Commissioner Knott, who is a hardworking, deeply ethical person with a great deal of integrity. In my estimation, does more work to promote the idea of equity in the state of Michigan in a month than most people could dream of doing in an entire lifetime. Thank you, Commissioner Knott, for that work, and thank you for the time you spend on this commission. I appreciate your efforts a great, great deal. I really am unhappy with the idea of calling individual commissioners out. Take it out on me if you want, but calling individual commissioners out for criticism. This is a group of people who are trying their darndest to do the good work for the city, for everyone that lives here. I believe we all are invested in the same thing. This is a community that is equitable, that is vibrant, that is a place where people can realize their dreams and take advantage of opportunity. Now, just a little bit more on the work side of things and what a few things I want to go through here. The clock is now ticking, Vice Mayor Griffin, on the 90-day statement we made here in the ordinance that passed tonight in terms of having a civil rights board up and functioning. That is a rather short time period to do that. So I had a discussion with our director of equity and inclusion and diversity earlier, and we talked about the fact that there is an application process, and that application process will soon be available for people who desire to be on this board. And that application process will not be a great deal different from the application process that we have for all boards that people serve on, advisory boards and otherwise in the city. And I'm sure that very shortly there will be an application available. I believe it will be on the clerk's portion of the website. I presume within days for people to apply to be on this board. The application we're using is basically the standard application that most people can use to apply on any advisory board, with some adjustments for some additional information that we need to collect relative to the ordinance that we passed tonight. So those applications will soon be available, but I'm suggesting tonight, Commission, that we very quickly put together a work group, which would include 2 or 3 members from the City Commission that can work with city staff to create the process for evaluating those applications, for determining how we are going to populate this new board we've created. In the ordinance itself, it talks about the fact that the appointments will be made by the person who's in the position of being the mayor. So that's me right now in the city of Kalamazoo, and will be approved by the City Commission. So I'm suggesting now that I'm suggesting maybe Vice Mayor Griffin, if you'd be willing to serve on a smaller group doing that work. If you're willing to do that, I appreciate that. And another commissioner or 2 that's very interested in doing that work. I am open for volunteers.
You're not going to be on the commission? You're not going to be on it, Mayor?
I'm more than happy to be on it. Are you nominating me?
So you need one more person then.
Okay, then.
Okay.
All right. I see 2 hands up, so I'll tell you what. We don't have to officially, make an action on this tonight. I see that Commissioner Urban has volunteered, Commissioner Hess. If you just want to chat a little bit between yourselves and decide which way you want to go, let's just be ready to hit the ground running as far as that goes, and work with the folks on the city staff who are going to be part of that. I mean, most particularly Dorla Bonner and whoever else from the city side wants to be part of it. So that work will start soon. I also want to just direct people who have an opportunity. There was a press conference this afternoon. I believe that was at 2 o'clock. Just some more information relative to timelines and those things related to this Proud Boys event. Probably worthy of looking at. I presume that has been recorded, that press conference, and that's available. Maybe Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, I don't know if it's available now or if it'll be available tomorrow. Let us know about that, but that was done. And then I just want to follow up with this, is that, as I referenced a little earlier, I mean, I wouldn't have gotten into this work of community building, which is not easy work, if I was not actually an optimist, and maybe I will say sometimes a naive optimist. And sometimes, despite all our challenges, and gosh, it feels like a challenging time right now. I mean, whether we're talking about kids in school, whether we're talking about family members we have lost, whether we are talking about the recognition of, once again, of inequality and the hard work we have to do to address that. Despite the challenges, I'm still an optimist. I believe, in the basic goodness of human beings and our capacity for change and growth and understanding. And I believe that we will get through this pandemic and more so than ever focus on the work of building a more equitable world, and more specifically, community together. In the big picture, I think we all want the same things. We want safe, we want fair, we want a vibrant community, we want opportunities for all. So let's recognize that we are in this life together, and that we must take responsibility for healing divisions and bear witness to solutions, and do it with love. Keep your hearts open. Love you, Kalamazoo. We are adjourned.